Chapter 87. The reason D. Shirtion came this time was to unite the various demon beasts in the mountain range and gather all the scattered forces in the mountain range to give a thunderous strike to the cultivators in one fell swoop. If he wasn't confident, he naturally wouldn't easily come over. Raven King, you know that a large number of cultivators have surged into the mountain range, but there's one thing that you definitely don't know. The light in D. Shirtion's tiger eyes suddenly condensed, and the aura on his body became heavy. He looked at the underworld Raven King that stood on the treetop and said, "They intend to annihilate all the demon beasts in our southern barbaric land." These words were spoken resolutely and decisively, giving others the feeling that they couldn't help but firmly believe it. Words that don't shock others to death. The last sentence was indeed earth-shattering. As long as it was a spirit beast or demon beast in the southern barbaric land, there was probably no one that wouldn't care and be shocked when they heard it. D. Shirtion saw that the underworld Raven King's temperament was extremely cold, and ordinary words were absolutely unable to move him. So, he didn't beat around the bush and spat out a shocking and moving sentence as soon as he opened his mouth. What? Annihilate all the demon beasts in the southern barbaric land? When the underworld Raven King heard this, two shocking cold lights suddenly shot out from his cold and indifferent eyes, and the surrounding temperature suddenly plummeted as an aura of death swiftly enveloped the surroundings. A trace of gray gas emitted from his body, and quite a bit of it actually charged towards D. Shirtion. This kind of energy, so sinister, I can't let it approach. The violet king mark on D. Shirtion's forehead seemed to have sensed the gray gas approaching, and a layer of dark violet light burst out from it. The king mark was like a ball of flame that jumped about. Not only was it not afraid of the gray gas, instead blazed brightly and surged before the gray gas, swallowing it in one fell swoop before retracting it, returning to normal. This gray gas was the unique aura of death of the underworld raven. Seeing that the gray chi was unable to get close to him, D. Shirtion remained still and said, "That's right. According to what I know, the cultivators who have entered the mountain have already gathered at a certain place in the mountain range. One or two cultivators can naturally look down on us, but when thousands of cultivators work together, this force is not something that any of us can contend against. If they deal with us one by one, I'm afraid there will be no place for us demons in the southern barbarian lands. As for whether the cultivators are really gathered together, Crow King, you can send your subordinates to investigate. When the time comes, it will naturally become clear." Every word he said was filled with confidence. His tiger-like eyes flashed with the light of wisdom. Exactly. This was the method he truly used to persuade the various demon beasts in the southern barbaric mountain range to set up beforehand. In the past, when he hunted cultivators, he intentionally revealed his figure and left one alive so that he could spread the news. It was for the sake of giving those people who had ill intentions towards him and the psychic compass an excuse, an opportunity. Others wanted to set up a trap to target him. So he was also planning to gather those scattered cultivators together. With this gathering, he had achieved his goal. It was for no other reason than to create a type of influence, an influence that the cultivators wanted to join forces to deal with the southern barbarian lands. This was the best trump card D. Shirtion used to persuade the various demon beasts in the mountain range. So, it could be said that he was borrowing the influence of the cultivators and using the influence of the cultivators to condense a force to deal with them. This move was already able to see the methods and wisdom that D. Shirtion used to turn the tides in the sea of business in his previous life. Before he did this, he'd already thought of the various methods that he would use later. Demon beasts were already living beings that possessed profound wisdom, and they couldn't be looked at as ordinary wild beasts. If he didn't set up the first move, then the hope of persuading them would be absolutely slim. Okay, I'll give you an answer in 3 days. The light in the underworld Crow King's eyes also became serious because of D. Shirtion's words. Obviously, he truly attached importance to this matter. D. Shirtion secretly said in his heart, "It's done." However, he nodded and said, 3 days later, I will let out a tiger's roar. If you, Crow King, are willing to join this operation, then you can come at the sound of the tiger's roar. Although our demon race has declined, we still can't tolerate a group of clowns bullying us." The meaning behind his words was awe-inspiring. It was brimming with an imposing manner of going forward, even if there were millions of people. Without saying anything else, he turned around and walked out of the Witherbone wasteland. The Underworld Crow King was only the first stop, and there were still other demon beasts that needed to be persuaded. Judging from the expression revealed in the Underworld Crow King's eyes, he had already roughly predicted that 3 days later, there was a 90% chance that he would join this operation. He walked out of the terrifying Witherbone wasteland easily. As he walked, he thought about what to do next in his mind. The Crow King is in the north, but what I heard before was 4 echoes. Other than him, there are 3 others. Listening to the roar in the east, it should be a lion-type demon beast. As for the howl in the west, it sounds like a savage. In the south, there are birds chirping, and it's close to my myriad demon valley. In 3 days, I have to run all over the southern Manly region and persuade them separately. Time is extremely tight. I have to speed up. When Chertion thought about this, his footsteps couldn't help but quicken a lot. His body drew a black shadow in the mountain forest as he rushed to the west of the southern barbaric mountain range. He was also a little curious about the demon beast in the west. The howl that he heard back then was filled with a kind of wildness. It was filled with the desire to fight. He also wanted to know what kind of demon beast could have such a howl. In the 100-flower valley, hundreds of flowers were in full bloom, and the fragrance was drifting leisurely. The breeze blew and rolled up layers of flower waves, which was charming. It was really as beautiful as a fairyland. The petals danced and swayed in the wind like a young girl's instructions. In the sea of flowers, a wooden house was clustered up with an elegant charm. In front of the window of the house, a young girl was looking at the flowers and seemed to be listening to something. A thoughtful look appeared on her face. This black tiger actually has such wisdom. It knows how to cooperate with each other. It wants to unite the power of the entire southern barbaric mountain range to fight against the cultivators. The young girl's voice was soft like a flowing spring. She didn't leave the valley, but she could know what Chertion was doing. This kind of method was even more brilliant and wonderful. In fact, when the cultivators in the southern barbaric mountain range suddenly began to gather, she had already begun to pay attention. The method she used could be said to be very strange. It was hard to imagine that she used the hundreds of flowers scattered in every corner of the mountain range to send messages and act as her eyes. With this observation, she immediately discovered that Chertion was cooperating with the Underworld Raven King. She couldn't help but feel a little curious about him. Like in the southern barbaric mountain range, although these demon beasts had wisdom that was not inferior to humans, they all lived in their own territory and were kings of their own. They never thought of cooperating with each other. There was no other reason. They were all demon beasts, and no one would yield to another. Which demon beast didn't have their own pride? Therefore, Chertion's behavior was quite unusual. It was also a matter of common sense to arouse the young girl's curiosity. After thinking about it secretly, the young girl didn't care too much about this matter. No matter what happened in the southern barbaric mountain range, as long as it wasn't a matter of life and death, she couldn't easily make a move. She just remembered Chertion in her heart. He had an impression that wasn't very deep. She quietly closed her eyes and meditated. When she meditated, the hundreds of flowers in the valley actually drooped down as if they were worshiping her. Bursts of floral fragrance wafted out and rushed purposefully into the wooden house. There were 5 great demon beasts in the southern barbaric mountain range. Of course, this didn't mean that there were only 5 demon beasts in the entire southern barbaric mountain range. Instead, it meant that the 5 powerhouses among the demon beasts were recognized as kings. In the north was naturally the Underworld Raven King. It controlled the entire Witherbone wasteland. Coupled with its own characteristics, it could be said that the creatures in the mountains stayed away from it. It was the most terrifying of the 5 great demon beasts. In the west, it was the Black Ape King. Although it was called an ape, it was actually a gorilla. It was born with an extraordinary talent for fighting. It was quite belligerent, and its combat strength was also at the top among the demon beasts. Especially its strength. It was born with divine strength. With a punch, even a mountain would be blown apart. In terms of pure strength, there weren't many who dared to be on par with it. In the west of the southern barbaric mountain range, the Black Ape King had incomparable appeal. It occupied one side. As for the other three, each of them had their own strong points. At this moment, Tirtian was heading towards the Black Ape King's forces. Senior Marshal Brother Zhong. Right now, most of the cultivators are rushing towards One Line Sky. I wonder if the rumors are true. A pretty young girl lifted her foot and kicked a small stone in front of her into the distance before walking forward. Looking at her appearance, it was Chu Yun, who was going into the mountains to find Tirtian. Her two spirited eyes blinked, bringing with them a trace of cunning light. Zhong Yunfei smiled indifferently and said, "Whether it's true or not, it's worth going over and taking a look. Otherwise, the southern barbaric mountain range is so big. It's too difficult for us to find the demon tiger. It's undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, most of the cultivators are rushing towards the One Line Sky right now. With thousands of cultivators gathered together, it's also a rare event. I don't care. If the black tiger really appears at that time, I don't care about the psychic compass. However, the black tiger must be caught. Senior Marshal Brother Zhong, when the time comes, we will have to rely on your dragon binding rope. For a genius like Chu Yun, what kind of thing could she not get? If it could be easily obtained, she would definitely not care too much. On the contrary, the more difficult it was to obtain, the more attractive it was to people like her. This gave them the mentality of not giving up until they got what they wanted. To a large extent, this was also the reason why Chu Yun wanted to capture the black tiger. No matter what, Zhong Yunfei and Li Wuyo followed the crowd and headed towards the One Line Sky. It had to be said that the rumors released by the Li family were indeed capable of stirring people's hearts. Those who were tempted, even those who didn't want to go, still came out of curiosity. In just 1 or 2 days, no less than 1,000 cultivators had gathered in the vicinity of the One Line Sky. Furthermore, more and more people were rushing over from all over the mountain range. He believed that as long as there was another day or two, One Line Sky would definitely become a region where a storm would suddenly rise. If you have monthly tickets and have recommendations, please go to them. To be continued, please go to www.chidian.com for more chapters. Support the author and support the original reading. Chapter 88. Big Brother. There's a **** conspiracy. A lot of people want to hit me. Many people want to hit the tiger. Near the One Line Sky, the gathered martial artists were either chatting in whispers or laying down a piece of animal skin on the ground. They put all kinds of goods on the ground and set up a stall. There were also some that closed their eyes to train and conserve their energy. Behind these people, under a towering tree, 3 burly men of similar appearances sat on the ground without a care for their image. There was a bonfire in front of them, and on top of the fire, there were a few rabbits that were glistening with oil. They were constantly rotating, and under the licking of the fire, their skin was split open, and the golden yellow rabbit meat emitted an enticing fragrance. While the 3 big guys looked at the rabbit meat, they drooled from the corner of their mouth. He kept swallowing the food. Who else could they be if they were not the 3 Qin brothers from before? The one that spoke was the youngest Qin Xian. Now he was missing 2 front teeth. When he spoke, he could not hold back the wind. The words he swallowed became neither fish nor fowl and made people laugh. A conspiracy had become a *****. Third, what a *****. Last time when we met that black bear, I said we would go together, but you insisted on going alone. Now look, 2 of your front teeth were knocked out. A conspiracy has become a *****. When Qin Shi heard Qin Xian's nondescript words, he jumped up angrily and gave him popping popcorn. Boss, don't be angry. Last time, it was also because I heard others say that the black bear had great strength. I was not convinced and insisted on competing. Anyways, Nothing major happened. Second Qin Sheng swallowed his saliva and said, "However, these many people are dealing with one demonic tiger. Which one should we help? I heard that tiger meat is delicious." As he said this, his eyes emitted a wolf-like light. His saliva dripped to the ground. When Boss heard this, he said angrily, "Needless to say, Mother said that we cannot bully the few with more people. We must get rid of the strong and help the weak." These three living treasures were extremely interesting. This time, they had also followed the majority of martial artists to come here. Since they had all come, one could imagine how many martial artists had gathered here. There were all kinds of people gathered here, chatting in pairs. Their conversations were all about the psychic compass, the demonic tiger, and so on. Each and every one of them was looking forward to how to lure the demonic tiger out. In the blink of an eye, it was the third day. Roar! Cultivators had gathered at the one-line heavens, causing the slaughter in the southern barbaric mountain range to lessen greatly. So, the mountain forest seemed to have the peace of the past, and it was amidst this peace that a powerful tiger's roar that was like metal and stone shot into the sky from the depths of the mountain range, shaking the heavens and resounding through the clouds. For the peaceful southern barbarian, it was no different than a burst of thunder on the ground. The tiger's roar was vast, like waves and tides, with a faint momentum of swallowing the world. The sound covered the whole mountain range. The Tiger King's might was undoubtedly evident. Listen, that's a tiger's roar. It must be the roar of a demonic tiger. How tyrannical. The cultivators in the one-line sky naturally heard it as well. They felt the shocking aura of the tiger's roar, and their expressions changed. Is the demonic tiger really going to be lured to one-line sky? Looking at this momentum, it's 100% a demonic beast. Demonic beasts are not easy to deal with. For a time, many people among the cultivators had different thoughts. Putting aside the thoughts of the cultivators here, there was a mountain not far from the Myriad Demon Valley. No, in fact, it couldn't be called a mountain. It could only be regarded as a relatively tall hill. On the hill, there was a layer of green grass everywhere. On the hill, a black tiger with a body size of 50 feet stood proudly. It stretched its neck and roared. It lasted for half a quarter of an hour before it fell. Brother D, this time is really interesting. All the demonic beasts in the southern barbarian have united. The scene will definitely be amazing. At that time, we must drive those cultivators out. Just when Sakura heard the tiger's roar, a scarlet little bird, which was brimming with spiritual energy, flew around him. It appeared to be very excited as it chirped and cried out excitedly. Its voice was clear and pleasant. Zhu, don't underestimate the cultivators. Now they have all gathered in the one-line sky. If this force is gathered, it will become a powerful force. We must not underestimate it. This time, what we have to do is to keep them in the mountain range as much as possible and teach the cultivators a lesson. Di Shirtian looked at the vermilion bird flying in front of him with a trace of calmness in his eyes. Speaking of which, in the past 3 days, he didn't stop for a moment. He shuttled back and forth in the entire southern barbarian. In order to persuade the demonic beasts in the mountain range, he used all his means. He ran to the west, and before he could speak, he fought fiercely with the Black Ape King who was full of fighting spirit. The Golden Lion Kings in the east all had their own personalities and temperaments. However, in his description of the various situations in the mountain range, and the same as what he said to the Underworld Crow King before, he used the pressure brought by the cultivators who were constantly gathering in the one-line sky to talk about the alliance. In the end, when he went to the south, he saw a crane, a huge snow-white red-crowned crane. At that time, the vermilion bird was beside the red-crowned crane, constantly persuading something. Needless to say, the vermilion bird was persuading the red-crowned crane king at that time, hoping that she could deal with the cultivators in the mountain forest. However, the crane king didn't seem to be persuaded by her, causing the vermilion bird to sulk at the side. When Sakura arrived, he stated his prowess and used his glib tongue to persuade Crane King on the spot. This scene instantly changed the vermilion bird's impression of him, and it was filled with admiration. Therefore, when he came to this hill, the vermilion bird also followed along and chirped in his ears. After a period of time, the vermilion bird's address towards Sakura became Big Brother Sakura. What are you afraid of? This time, Big Brother D, you invited all the demonic beasts in the entire southern barbarian. Don't be fooled by the stinky crow's lifeless and cold appearance. In fact, his strength is quite strong. Together with his tens of thousands of clansmen, he's very powerful. There's also the gorilla, which is very strong. With the golden lion and Sister Medusa, there's no need to be afraid that we can't defeat those hateful cultivators. The vermilion bird landed on a big stone, flapped her wings, and shouted loudly. Her eyes were shining as if she had already seen the scene of a large group of cultivators being completely defeated. Listening to her, it was as if victory was an easy thing. Don't underestimate anyone. Sakura swallowed a sentence and stood on the hill. He turned his head to look in all directions, and a radiance flashed in his eyes as he said, "They are here." Wah! As soon as he finished speaking, he heard an ear-piercing, unpleasant, and abnormally choppy cry from the north. Moreover, it was very fast. A dense and cold aura appeared in the sky above the hill. A huge underworld crow was descending from the sky. On his body, there was a dense aura of death, and in his eyes, there was a kind of indifference. Behind him, there was a black flock of crows. Each and every one of them had the same aura as the underworld crow king. They were all cold as if they had no emotions. Under the lead of the underworld crow king, they directly landed on a huge rock on the hill. They did not say anything and just looked at D. Shurtion quietly. "Stinky crow, I knew you weren't that kind of a motionless stone. I'll be more generous and forgive you for what happened last time." When a vermilion bird saw the arrival of the underworld crow king, she was also very excited. She flew in front of him and chirped. D. Shurtion had previously set a limit of 3 days, and the tiger's roar was the signal. He said that if he agreed, he would come. Now that he could come, his meaning was obvious. Howl! Above his head, another bird cry sounded out. This cry was different from the underworld raven king's. The underworld raven king's cry carried a gloomy coldness and death, but this cry carried a kind of nobility and elegance. A white cloud descended from the sky. "Sister Crane is also here." The vermilion bird cried out again. The one who came was none other than the red-crowned crane king, one of the 5 great demon beasts of the southern wilderness. A beautiful, snow-white crane with only a little red on the top of its head landed gracefully on another rock. At the same time, it also retracted a pair of wings that were several meters wide. When D. Shurtion saw it, he could not help but be moved in his heart. He remembered that he had read some records in his previous life. In myths, there were often legends of red-crowned cranes. Moreover, generally speaking, red-crowned cranes were used to symbolize happiness, auspiciousness, longevity, and loyalty. Therefore, the mounts of immortals were often red-crowned cranes. This also indirectly showed that the crane was different from the rest. "The Crane King is here. Please rest for a while. The other demon beast kings have not arrived yet." D. Shurtion nodded slightly to the red-crowned crane king and said. His tone was not humble at all, directly putting himself in the same position as them. It was not that he was arrogant, but that he had such strength. He opened up the heaven-grade demon abode and laid a solid foundation. He also had the demon mistblade, the tiger's roar sound wave, and other methods that gave him strength that was not inferior to any demon beast. Thinking about it, if he did not have the corresponding strength, a king like the Underworld Crow King would not listen to him. No matter what calculation, there was only one thing that would not change, and that was strength. Strength was the foundation of everything. Rumble. Every moment, the ground shook violently. In the forest, hurried footsteps sounded one after another. With every step, the ground trembled violently. A black gorilla that was more than 10 meters tall and close to 20 meters tall walked forward with large strides. It had no intention of avoiding the trees in front of it at all. It walked straight forward. Its tyrannical body crashed into the trees, causing those towering trees to be smashed into pieces. It swayed left and right and flew out to both sides. With a fierce aura, he dashed toward the hill. The vigor of its aura was so strong that any cultivator below the Foundation establishment stage would be pressed to the ground by it. It was like a peerless demon. The foreshadowing of the Great War of the Southern Barbarians is almost done. A magnificent war is about to unfold. Brothers, if you have monthly votes or recommendations, give them all to me. Chapter 89. That appearance, the hair on his body, was longer than a person's, like a giant. When he moved, demonic flames overflowed into the sky. Wherever he walked, he directly opened up a spacious road behind him. Behind him, for gorillas that were a size smaller than him, followed behind the Black Ape King with high spirits, quickly rushing to the hill where Tion and the others were standing. Before the Black Ape King arrived, he had already seen the hill from afar. Tion's body was also incomparably huge. Although his 15-meter-tall body could not be compared to the Black Ape King, the difference was not big. He saw him at a glance. He could not help but grin and shout, "Brother D, I, Old Black, have come to help you. If you want to fight, how can I, Old Black, be left out?" With his tall and sturdy body, his words were like thunder in the sky. His voice was like rolling thunder, whistling over. Unparalleled demonic aura soared into the sky, forming a black demonic cloud above his head. Bang, bang, bang. His footsteps were hurried. With his strong body, he directly knocked away all the obstacles in front of him and arrived in front of the hill. He laughed loudly and said, "Old Crow, Big Sister Crane, you've already arrived first." "Great, I, Old Black, knew that's such a big matter. How can you be left out?" The Black Ape King was full of a rough aura. Seeing the Underworld Crow King and the Red-Crowned Crane King who had arrived first, he could not help but grin foolishly. The immortal cultivators have gone too far. I had to come. The Red-Crowned Crane King's voice was elegant, and there was a trace of faint clanging in his voice. It did not lose its king's spirit. "Big guy, you're here too. Don't you like to fight very much? This time, you don't have to be polite to that group of immortal cultivators. You must teach them a big lesson. We can't let people look down on us as Southern barbarians and think that anyone can suppress us." The vermilion bird flapped its wings, and like a flash of lightning, it directly landed on the Black Ape King's shoulder from a few hundred meters away. As it chattered, its two wings were like arms, waving angrily. Bang, bang, bang. The Black Ape King clenched his fist and hammered his chest a few times, emitting a muffled sound like the beating of a drum. He said, "Miss Zhu, please be at ease. In the past, it was just a group of cultivators looking for some spirit herbs in the mountain forest. This time, they actually dared to target our entire southern barbarian lands. If I, Old Black, don't kill them all, I won't have the face to stay in the mountains in the future." He patted his chest, his expression unusually firm. However, there seemed to be a trace of respect in his eyes as he looked at the vermilion bird. "Little Sister Vermilion Bird, since we're all here today, we won't just stand by and watch the cultivators defeat us one by one. Don't worry. However, I hope that after the cultivators are expelled, I can pay a visit to your sister. When the time comes, I'll need you to pass on the message," the Red-Crowned Crane King said gently. From her tone, it seemed that she was looking forward to meeting her sister. When the vermilion bird heard this, her eyes spun twice. Then she nodded and said, "Don't worry, Big Sister Crane. When the time comes, I'll definitely let my sister come out and meet everyone." When they heard this, no matter if it was the Underworld Crow King or the Black Ape King, their bodies emitted a feeling of anticipation and relaxation from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if there was suddenly a bit of longing in their bodies, and their entire temperament underwent a change. When Tion saw this scene, a light flashed in his eyes, and he secretly pondered in his heart. Looks like the vermilion bird should have an older sister. Moreover, her older sister is definitely not an ordinary person. Otherwise, the Crane King, Underworld Crow King, and the others wouldn't have this kind of expression. Looking at their appearance, they seem to have an extraordinary respect for the vermilion bird's older sister. Could it be above his head there were sparks of intelligence flickering? In practically just a few thoughts, He had already sorted out many ideas in his heart. How could an existence that could make the demon beast in the southern barbarian mountain range feel respect and reverence be an ordinary person? Perhaps the vermilion bird's older sister wasn't just a demon beast, but was even stronger than a demon beast and was a true demon. Demons were different from demon beasts. Demon beasts could only be said to be the reserves of demons. In order to transform into a demon, they needed to condense an inner core within their body. With an inner core, it would allow their strength to instantly undergo a qualitative leap. First, they could undergo the lightning tribulation and transform into a human's appearance. They could rely on their physical body, fly in the air, and so on. There were all kinds of miraculous abilities, and there were too many to count. Roar! Just as the demon beasts on the hill were talking, a golden light appeared at the foot of the hill. Within the golden light, a huge roar sounded. This was the roar of a lion. In the midst of the roar, the golden light had already quickly traversed a large distance and appeared on the hill. Black Block, you've come as well. So it's you, Golden Retriever. The Black Ape King's eyes carried a trace of battle intent as he fiercely glared at the newcomer. And this newly arrived demon beast also glared back, not to be outdone. Looking at the newcomer, his aura wasn't the slightest bit inferior to the Black Ape King and the others. His body was abnormally tall and sturdy, not much different from Di Shirtian, reaching a height of 5 zhang. Looking at his appearance, he was actually a golden lion king with golden fur all over his body, as if his entire body was cast from gold. This golden lion king was not ordinary. It actually had 3 identical heads. It looked abnormally terrifying. Moreover, these 3 heads were also rather strange. The middle head did not have any power, but the 2 on the left and right were clearly a little strange. They actually closed their eyes together. They did not open their eyes, nor did they open their mouths. It was as if they were silent, and it was extremely strange. This was precisely another demon beast of the southern barbarian, the Golden Lion King. However, he and the Black Ape King didn't seem to get along well. When they met, they looked at each other at the same time. The aura on their bodies quickly condensed, as if they were about to fight to the death on the spot. Just when the atmosphere was about to explode, a disdainful chuckle suddenly resounded in the surroundings. Behind the chuckle, a sentence was spat out. Black Block, Golden Lion, even if you two want to fight, you should at least wait for the right time. If you have the strength, you can vent it on the cultivators later. Why are you showing off here? Who is this? When Di Shirtian heard this, his heart was suddenly startled. He quickly turned to look at the direction of the voice. He understood that the voice was not only not afraid of the Black Ape King and the Golden Lion King, but also had a reprimanding tone. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a lesson. Moreover, the 2 sides who were reprimanded not only didn't get angry, but also took back their aura at the same time. This was worthy of being surprised. When he turned to look, his heart couldn't help but thump. He said in surprise, could it be the legendary Queen Medusa? But it wasn't. In the middle of the hill, there stood a woman with a cold expression. Her body was graceful, and her curves were orderly. She wore a colorful dress. This colorful dress reflected traces of colorful light. Looking carefully, that colorful dress was actually not made of ordinary materials. It was full of small scales, abnormally dense, all made of snake scales. This kind of dress made of snake scales had a kind of gentle softness. Together, when worn on the cold woman's body, it completely outlined her perfect figure. Towering twin peaks, plump, beautiful buttocks, and especially her waist, which was the legendary snake waist. It was extremely tempting. When people saw it, they couldn't help but have the impulse to pull her into their arms. However, this kind of temptation, when looking at her hair, immediately made people feel as if they were suddenly drenched in ice water on a hot summer day. They immediately felt a chill from head to toe. There was no beautiful hair on her head. Instead, there were many small, colorful, poisonous snakes on her head. They constantly danced and flicked their tongues. This scene could definitely make any desire disappear on the spot. Medusa. It was definitely Medusa. When Di Shirtion saw this poisonous snake, his heart turned cold, and he was inexplicably shocked. In his mind, he recalled the myths and legends that he had read in the past. According to the legends, Medusa was a snake-haired demoness in Greek mythology. She used to be a very beautiful woman, but because of her excessive arrogance and self-confidence, she stood in front of Athena and loudly shouted that she was more beautiful than God. Thus, she was turned into a snake-haired demoness. She had a head full of snake hair and a pair of wild boar fangs. Even her neck was covered with snake scales. Even her lower body had the appearance of a snake. Thus, the goddess of wisdom gave her a pair of eyes that would immediately turn anyone who looked at her into stone. According to the records, when her eyes flashed with a terrifying light, anyone who looked at her would immediately turn into a lifeless big stone, a stone sculpture, or a stone statue. Of course, this was a myth that Di Shirtion had read in his previous life. Naturally, it could not be compared to the purple gold mainland. On the mainland, Medusa was the natural king of snakes and a member of the demon race. When she was born, she had a human head and a snake body. Her head was covered with poisonous snakes, and she was born with the innate ability to petrify people. When she transformed into a demon beast, her snake body could fade away and she could turn into a human. However, the beautiful hair on her head would still remain unchanged. Her petrification ability would become even stronger. The most frightening thing was her innate ability. When she was a demon beast, her innate ability allowed her to cause damage to enemies of a higher level than her. In other words, although Medusa was only a demon beast now, she could pose a threat to core formation cultivators. It was precisely because of this that Medusa was an absolute powerhouse in any level. Countless people were terrified of her and kept their distance from her. Could it be that the helper Zhu said she was looking for last time is her? Di Shirtion secretly guessed in his heart. Earlier, the vermilion bird had left for a period of time and said she was going to find a formidable helper. At that time, he didn't pay much attention to it. Looking at the situation, the Medusa that appeared before him now should be the helper the vermilion bird found. Looking at Medusa, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The southern barbaric mountain range is indeed a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Looking at the scene on the hill, the underworld Raven King, Red-Crowned Crane King, Black Ape King, Golden Lion King, Queen Medusa, and Di Shirtion could be said to be the current peak power of the southern barbaric mountain range. Strongly recommend a good classic book from a good friend. Mystic Immortal Supreme, book number 15709, 1 the story of a child beggar who bravely advanced after joining a famous sect and advancing courageously. The writing was first-rate. The story was refreshing and wonderful, extremely immortal, yet not lacking the refreshing feeling of a fantasy cultivator. The child beggar cultivates and becomes a supreme being. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 90. Medusa, you're here too. Seeing Medusa's arrival, the red-crowned crane king's eyes lit up. He seemed to be very happy as he said, "Since you're here for this battle, our side's strength will definitely increase greatly. We'll have a higher chance of successfully chasing away the cultivators. However, didn't you say last time that you're going to go into seclusion to prepare to condense your inner core? Why are you here all of a sudden?" Medusa was actually a peak demonic beast. Di Shirtion was shocked once again. According to cultivation, demonic beasts could be divided into low-grade demonic beasts, mid-grade demonic beasts, high-grade demonic beasts, and peak demonic beasts that had already started to condense their inner cores. It could be said that those that could become peak demonic beasts all had extraordinary strength. They were absolute experts that had already condensed their demonic energy to the peak, causing their demonic energy to be completely filled to the brim. At that time, they would have to continuously compress and condense the demonic energy in their demonic energy, causing the liquid demonic energy to undergo a qualitative change and condense into an inner core that was closely related to their life. When one's cultivation reached this stage, it was already infinitely close to the demonic realm. And from what the red-crowned crane king said, Medusa was actually at this stage. She was about to condense her demonic energy and transform into a demonic core and inner core. One could imagine how powerful and unpredictable Medusa's cultivation was. And little sister crane, after some time, you'll also be able to become a high-grade demonic beast. Medusa glanced at the red-crowned crane king and nodded slightly. If the colorful, poisonous snakes on her head were removed, she could definitely be called a peerless beauty. Her voice was clear and cold. Clearly, her nature was not the lively and passionate type. Perhaps this was related to her identity. She had a poisonous snake on her head, so who would dare to get close to her? Snakes were of the Een attribute, so their temperament was cold. This was understandable. Big Sister Medusa, Jour knew that you would definitely come. When the vermilion bird saw Queen Medusa, it flapped its wings happily and circled in front of her, chirping excitedly. Medusa's appearance was indeed related to her. She was the one who went to invite her. Otherwise, she would have been in seclusion. There was probably no one in the southern barbarian lands who could invite her. Medusa's cold face softened inexplicably when she saw the vermilion bird. She nodded and said, "It's about the survival of the demon clan in the southern wilderness. How can I not come? Although our demon race has fallen, how can we allow some clowns to bully us?" Her gaze gradually turned cold, and she snorted coldly. "A group of chi condensation cultivators actually dare to covet my southern barbarian lands. We, the demon clan, are born and nurtured by the heavens. Who can destroy all the demon clans in the world?" There was a trace of disdain in his voice. "Well said. This prince, D. Shurtion, greets the queen." D. Shurtion said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. "The reason why I gathered everyone here this time is because I discovered that for some unknown reason, an astonishing number of cultivators have suddenly surged into our southern barbarian mountain range. Moreover, these cultivators have gathered together. It seems that they have a tendency to target our southern barbarian demon clan." D. Shurtion's first sentence attracted the attention of all the demon beasts on the hill. He immediately spoke in an impassioned tone. "Although our demon clan is no longer as glorious and prosperous as it was in ancient times, our southern barbarian lands is our homeland. However, the southern barbarian lands are our common homeland, a pure land where the demon race can live. It's a place where our demon clan can find shelter. It's a place where the younger generation can grow. But now, the cultivators have occupied the boundless mountains and rivers, but they still have their eyes on our southern barbarian lands." D. Shurtion was the initiator of this incident. He opened his mouth to mobilize. As he spoke, the light in his tiger eyes became incomparably dignified. He said, "I think that whether it's for us or for the younger generation in the southern barbarian lands, we must take action to teach the cultivators a lesson and expel them. Let the cultivators know that our southern barbarian lands is definitely not easy to bully." These words were said with a strong sense of righteousness. All the angles were from the southern barbarian lands and the demon clan standpoint. It was incomparably impassioned and had a strong emotional power. When the Black Ape King and the others heard it, their eyes were burning with anger. Bang! The Black Ape King's fist smashed on a boulder that was several meters in size beside him. The hard boulder was smashed into pieces and turned into powder that fell to the ground. His eyes were full of anger. He said, "Brother D is right. I, Old Black, also asked my subordinates to investigate. That group of cultivators is indeed gathering in the one-line sky. It's definitely not wrong. They want to attack our southern barbarian demon clan. I, Old Black, don't know anything else but fighting. If I don't kill them until their blood flows like a river, I will definitely not go back. Kill." The Underworld Crow King's words were still straightforward and simple. It was just one word, but it had already expressed his attitude. "I agree. It's time to teach them a lesson." The Red-Crowned Crane King nodded his head. "This This queen wants to see what kind of reliance this group of cultivators has to dare to set their eyes on the southern barbarian lands. These babies of mine are all hungry. Medusa was even more arrogant. She sneered and reached out to fiddle with her snake hair. Looking at the head full of poisonous snakes, all the demon beasts couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts at the same time. It was cold and chilly. All right, this time let's go together and see how strong the cultivators are. Seeing that all the demon beasts that came showed their disgust for the cultivators without hesitation, Chertion exhaled and shouted, "Now that those cultivators are gathering in the one-line sky, we don't need to reason with them. Just rush over and kill them. With our own powerful strength, we will definitely be able to teach them a profound lesson." As he spoke, his eyes emitted bursts of light as he looked at the one-line sky. Although the operation this time was initiated by Sakura, it was all for the same purpose. There wasn't any question of who was the leader or who was the leader. After confirming, they didn't have any hesitation and left the hill together. Waves of demonic aura gushed out from their bodies and soared into the sky. In the sky above them, a huge demonic cloud condensed. It was dark and oppressive as it violently rolled, giving people an incomparably oppressive aura. It was rolling towards the location of the one-line sky. Fourth Elder, that sound just now was the roar of that demon tiger. It seems that all the cultivators are rushing towards the one-line sky, causing the demon tiger's attention to shift here. In the valley of the one-line sky, Liwan heard the shocking tiger roar from Chertion's mouth and immediately realized that the owner of this roar was most likely the target they were looking for. He thought that their plan had worked, but he didn't know that the situation was completely opposite. The fourth elder looked calm and confident. He said, "Elder Wan, please don't worry. We have already set up a killing trap around the one-line sky. There are also thousands of rogue cultivators here. Although their cultivation is not very high, they are still an extremely powerful force when added together. Just them alone can make the demon tiger unable to return. Even if he is a demon beast, as long as he comes, he will not be able to leave the one-line sky." There was a hint of ruthlessness on his face. Liwan shook his head and said, "I am not afraid of the demon tiger. No matter how strong he is, he can't escape the fate of death. What I am really worried about is that after killing the demon tiger, the psychic compass may cause chaos. Although we had already anticipated that such a situation would occur and had taken measures to deal with it. But if we really do that, the news will be leaked. I am afraid that our Leaf family will become the tip of the storm. We may be in danger of being destroyed." He couldn't hide the deep worry in his expression. His eyes were filled with uneasiness and hesitation. "What are you afraid of?" "In these few days, our family's disciples have already placed everything in the designated location. When the demon tiger attacks, if anyone is suspicious, they can directly blame it on the demon tiger. In short, no matter what price we have to pay, the family's psychic compass must return to our hands. Whether our ancestor can break through depends on the power of the compass." The fourth elder's aura became even colder. "In order to help our ancestor break through, we will not hesitate to sacrifice the entire Leaf family. Even if the Leaf family is destroyed, as long as our ancestor is still alive, we will not be ruined." In the hearts of people like them, the family was indeed irreplaceable. The demon tiger is coming. Among the many practitioners, Zhong Yunfei looked in the direction where the tiger's roar came from and said in a firm tone. This was because he had already sensed that in that direction there were traces of powerful demonic qi soaring into the sky. Moreover, it was still rushing towards the one-line sky. It shouldn't be. Now, Chuyan didn't believe it and secretly wondered. In the past, I met the black tiger several times in the Tiger Hill mountain range. This black tiger must have a very high intelligence. It is far from being comparable to an ordinary spirit beast. With its intelligence, if it finds something wrong, it will definitely not walk into the trap. Hee. No matter what the demon tiger thinks, it's fine if it doesn't come. If it comes, my dragon binding rope will definitely tie it in front of Junior Sister." Zhong Yunfei smiled indifferently. Last time, he thought that he was too careless and didn't use all kinds of magic treasures and methods. This time, with the dragon binding rope, he wasn't afraid that he couldn't tie up a mere demon beast. Let's not talk about their own thoughts. On the other hand, the practitioners who were originally gathered at the one-line sky all became spirited when they heard the tiger's roar. Although they knew that it was a demon beast, no one was afraid. There was no other reason. With thousands of practitioners gathered together, not to mention a demon beast, even if it was a demon beast that had formed an inner core, they would dare to face it directly. Bang, bang, bang. However, just as they were brimming with confidence, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble violently without any warning. The earth quaked, and the mountains shook as if an earth dragon was turning over. The stones scattered on the ground bounced up, and the trees in the forest swayed with a rustling sound. Countless leaves flew down. At some point in time, the sky had already been shrouded by a layer of black clouds. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 91. Ripples appeared in the clear spring within the mountain, incessantly stirring up waves of undercurrents. All of the unsteady objects began to sway left and right. Smaller objects, such as small stones, even began to tremble unceasingly. F***CK, what's going on? Why is the ground shaking? There shouldn't be an earthquake here. Oh my God, quickly look at the sky. What a large black cloud. No, how is this a black cloud? It's a demonic cloud. What a strong demonic aura. How can this be? Isn't it just a demonic tiger? There's no need to make it so exaggerated. Quickly look, it's not a demonic tiger. F***CK, what a large gorilla. F***CK, who provoked the southern barbaric mountain range's black ape king. This guy is the most warlike among the demonic beasts. His defense and attack are both terrifyingly strong. Oh my God, he's rushing over here. Within the large area of the one-line sky, all of the mountain peaks and the ground were violently shaking and trembling. Rumbling sounds were unceasingly emitted. Demonic clouds covered the sky above, and bursts of demonic wind blew through the air, causing the leaves to madly rustle. An indescribable cold air enveloped the one-line sky. Boom, boom, boom. An enormous black ape stomped on the ground. With its giant-like body, every step it took caused the ground to rumble and violently tremble. Its two claws continuously beat on its steel-like body, emitting muffled sounds like the beating of a drum. A monstrous aura covered the sky and covered the earth as it surged over. When the cultivators within the one-line sky saw this, their complexions abruptly changed and became abnormally pale. Their eyes revealed expressions of shock and fear. Someone recognized the Black Ape King's identity and cried out, causing a large number of cultivators to tremble with fear. Within the southern barbaric mountain range, one could provoke anything, but they couldn't provoke the kings of the demonic beasts. This was because the strength of each of these kings was abnormally terrifying. When they fought, relying on their valiant demonic bodies and terrifying innate talents, even cultivators who were a level higher than them wouldn't dare to rashly step into the line of fire. Originally, they were waiting for the demonic tiger. Who would have thought that before the demonic tiger even arrived, it would provoke the big boss of the mountain range? Fourth Elder, what should we do now? Who provoked the Black Ape King? Even our old ancestor wouldn't dare to go against him. Li Wan was shocked. He had never expected such a thing to happen. Don't lose your cool. There's no need to be afraid, even if the Black Ape King comes. We have thousands of cultivators gathered here. Although most of them are in the chi refining stage, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for us to deal with the Black Ape King together. Fourth Elder's eyes shone with a cold light. No, Elder, it's not just one. There are many of them. Quick, look. At this moment, a disciple of the Leaf family cried out. His gaze towards the crack in the sky was filled with shock and fear. The arm he extended to point in the direction of the crack was constantly trembling. His face immediately paled. What? Everyone looked outside. Their faces were also frighteningly pale. How could this be? Could it be that all the demonic beasts in the southern barbaric mountain range have gone crazy? Why would they suddenly come out? Heavens, there are tens of thousands of underworld ravens. There's also the underworld raven king, the red-crowned crane king, and the golden lion king. Impossible, that's Queen Medusa. We're really going to be in big trouble. Fourth Elder's calm expression collapsed on the spot. He was so frightened by the almost impossible scene that he lost his mind. The sky was dark. Under the leadership of the underworld raven king, numerous pitch-black underworld ravens quickly flew over like a black cloud. Their ear-piercing and unpleasant cries were definitely their most obvious characteristic. The red-crowned crane king, which was 2 to 3 meters wide, spread its wings and soared in the sky like a white cloud. However, the pressure emitted from its body was not inferior to any demonic beast king. In front, the Black Ape King led the 4 guardian deities behind him. They crossed mountains and rivers, and they didn't dodge the trees in front of them. They directly used their valiant bodies to press down on them. Behind them, an incomparably wide and straight path appeared. The Golden Lion King and Tion both revealed their strongest states and returned to their original sizes. Both of them were enormous demonic beasts that were no less than 15 meters tall. Medusa, who had a graceful and extremely alluring figure but had a head full of snake hair that caused one's heart to turn cold, leisurely followed behind them. She spoke softly with the vermilion bird that stood on her shoulder. From her expression, it seemed as if she didn't care about the battle this time in the slightest. Perhaps the group of cultivators before her were simply unable to arouse her battle intent. Ordinarily, within the southern barbaric mountain range, as long as the cultivators didn't take the initiative to provoke these demonic beast experts, they would generally rarely leave their respective territories. The group of demonic beasts that suddenly appeared before them was simply a super luxurious lineup that gathered all the forces of the entire southern barbaric mountain range. Looking at the thousands of cultivators and the group of demonic beasts that were charging over at high speed with demonic flames surging in front of them, at this moment, within the group of ordinary loose cultivators, a cultivator that appeared to be around 30 years old, with an appearance that could only be said to be chiseled and slightly ordinary, and wore yellow clothes, suddenly soared into the sky with a solemn expression. He stood on an earthen yellow flying sword and held a chessboard made of white jade in his hand. This chessboard was horizontally and vertically separated by a river boundary. Shockingly, the words Chuhan were written in the words Chuhan. This was actually a Chuhan river boundary. On both sides of the river boundary, there were 9 parallel vertical lines and 10 parallel horizontal lines that intersected to form a chessboard. These vertical and horizontal lines formed a total of 90 intersecting points, and at both ends of the chessboard, there was a 9-palace formation that was shaped like the character me. In the middle of the 9 palace formations, there was shockingly a blood-red throne, and on the throne sat a general that wore blood-red battle armor and emitted boundless might from his entire body. Beside him, a blood-red battle saber was stabbed into the ground. It was in a position where it could be obtained at any time. In front of the general, there were only 2 figures. One was the white jade elephant that blocked the front, and the other was an archer that held a blood-red longbow. Besides this, there was nothing else, and the opposite side was even more empty. This was a chessboard, and the aura emitted by the chessboard seemed to be abnormally mysterious, as if it contained an unfathomable profundity. Everyone, don't panic. We have thousands of people here, and no matter how formidable the demonic beasts are, they are absolutely unable to withstand the joint attacks of all of us. So long as we combine our strength, even these demonic beasts are unable to do anything to us. The mysterious cultivator exhaled and said in a deep voice. His voice was infused with true essence, so it was unusually strong, and it quickly spread to the ears of all the cultivators. When the panicked cultivators heard this, they immediately became like drowning people who had suddenly caught a straw. They unconsciously calmed down and looked at the mysterious cultivator. When they saw him, many people exclaimed in surprise, "I recognize him. He is Chi Wujio, who is known as the chess fanatic among us itinerant cultivators. I heard that his cultivation has already entered the Foundation establishment realm." I heard that he refined all the materials and magic treasures on him into a natal Dharma artifact called the chess realm. Its power is boundless, and even against a core formation cultivator, it can compete with him and not be at a disadvantage. With him around, why would we need to be afraid of the demonic beasts? In an instant, many people revealed the matter of the mysterious cultivator. Chi Wujio was known as the chess fanatic. He had spent his entire life researching the Tao of chess, and by chance he embarked on the path of cultivation. Not only did he not give up on the Tao of chess, he instead became even more obsessed with it. Furthermore, after watching the battles of the mortal world, a flash of inspiration appeared in his mind, and he actually created an unparalleled Tao of chess. He even decisively refined all the materials and magic treasures he had collected into one, and refined a natal Dharma artifact called the chess realm. Once it was refined, it possessed extraordinary power. As itinerant cultivators, he had quite a bit of influence among itinerant cultivators. That's right, there's so many of us here, and each of us can drown the demonic beasts with just a mouthful of saliva. As long as we work together, we can stop these demonic beasts. You have to know that every part of the demonic beasts is a treasure. If we can kill them, the materials we obtain from their bodies can be used to refine many magic treasures. As he spoke, the white-clothed Zhong Yunfei also used the Imperial Wind technique on himself and flew into the air. He looked at the demonic beasts that were sweeping towards them, and his eyes emitted a dense battle intent and a trace of disgust. The demonic beasts of the southern barbaric mountain range would suddenly join forces to attack. This was indeed unexpected, and it was also unexpected by everyone. However, at this time, there was no way out. As long as these several thousand cultivators collapsed, everyone would be doomed. Behind them, even more experts hidden among the cultivators stood out one after another, and there were even quite a few Foundation establishment cultivators among them. At this time, these Foundation establishment cultivators no longer cared about hiding, and they all stood out to boost the morale. That's right, there are so many of us. What are we afraid of? Let's fight to the death with the demonic beasts. That's right, the demonic beasts are at most equivalent to us Foundation establishment cultivators. We also have Foundation establishment experts here, so we can definitely stop them. Let's go all out. Under the encouragement of Chi Wujio and the other experts, the several thousand cultivators immediately calmed down. They all took out their magic treasures and grasped a large number of talismans in their hands. In front of the sky, they gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and united with each other. A heavy aura condensed out of thin air, and they fiercely glared at the incoming demonic beasts. Under the powerful pressure of Di Shirtian and the other demonic beasts, the several thousand cultivators unexpectedly formed a temporary unity. Boom! Boom! Black demonic chi surged out of the black ape king's body. Every step he took caused the ground to rumble continuously. The ground beneath his feet shook violently, and the trees in front of him were smashed into pieces. Many large boulders were trampled by his feet, and they were instantly crushed into fine powder. It was as if a giant was charging over. The demonic chi above his head became even more gloomy. 2 huge eyes looked at the cultivators in front of him, revealing an intense and bloodthirsty light. You puny cultivators want to be arrogant in front of this ape king? Watch your grandfather slap you to death. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. I support the author. I support the original reading. Chapter 92. The Black Ape King roared arrogantly, and the words that came out of its mouth were actually human language. The cultivators could clearly understand it, and all of them couldn't help but have ashen expressions. Kill. Annihilate this black thing. Attack it together. Dare to look down on us. We absolutely can't let it go like this. For a time, the cultivators were filled with righteous indignation, and they were completely enraged. Spirit talismans were thrown out one after another like waste paper, and they quickly transformed into sharp attacks in midair. Spikes emerged from the ground, and all sorts of large and small fireballs, wind blades, ice blades, and so on blasted towards the Black Ape King from all directions. All sorts of magic tools also burst forth with multicolored lights, and like locusts, they smashed towards the Black Ape King. With the Black Ape King's enormous body, not a single one of these attacks would miss, and they would be able to hit the target as soon as they were launched. For a time, they saw countless terrifying scenes appear before their eyes in the entire heaven and earth. There were so many attacks that they practically drowned the Black Ape King in an instant. Roar! The Black Ape King paid no attention to the countless attacks that blasted towards it in the slightest. Its eyes flickered with traces of ferocious flames as it stepped forward with its left foot. The earth violently trembled and split open with a bang. Cracks that were like a spider web crazily spread out in all directions. A pitch-black, enormous ape claw was raised high up, and waves of demonic chi crazily gushed out from the ape claw. It was abnormally mysterious, and it covered the ape claw on the spot. Amidst the demonic chi, the ape's claws also underwent earth-shattering changes. They suddenly increased in size by several times, becoming incomparably huge. They were at least 10 meters wide, and on each of the claws, there was a metallic black luster. Each of the hairs were like steel needles, standing upright. As it expanded, the surrounding air emitted a series of intense explosions. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged endlessly. You dare to have designs on my southern barbaric mountain range? Die for me. The Black Ape King's face was incomparably malevolent, and its face carried a bloodthirsty light. Waves of black chi ceaselessly surged and spat out from its body. An ape claw directly slapped down towards the cultivators in front of it, and the cultivators that were covered under the claw numbered no less than 100. Boom, boom, boom. The cultivators' attacks and various spells were like fireworks. They were both beautiful and powerful. The surrounding aura became abnormally strange due to the countless spells. Because of the high temperature of the fireballs, the temperature suddenly increased. Because of the dark ice spell, the ice blades, and the like, the temperature suddenly dropped again. It was sometimes cold and sometimes hot, causing the surrounding scene to become strange and variegated. When the Black Ape King swatted down with his claw, those attacks all landed on his body. However, the moment the fireballs that could incinerate ordinary creatures, the mystic ice technique that could freeze living creatures, the sharp wind blades, and the ice blades landed on the Black Ape King, something unbelievable happened. The Black Ape King's black fur glowed with black light, and all over its body, its muscles squirmed violently like dragons. In that instant, he seemed to have turned into a black Vajra. He allowed all the attacks to land on his body. Although his body was trembling, he did not take even half a step back. On the contrary, the Black Ape King's ape claw was already pressing down like a mountain. Oh my God, save me. F***CK, this is too scary. I can't move my body at all. The hundreds of cultivators who were enveloped by the ape's claw only felt their vision darken as a terrifying power appeared around them. It was as if everything around them had been completely locked down. They could only watch the giant claw descend with a face full of fear. Their bodies did not listen to their commands at all. They wanted to dodge, but their bodies remained rooted to the spot in a daze. Boom, boom, boom. This claw landed heavily on those cultivators. Those under the claw were only low-level cultivators. Their bodies were only slightly stronger than ordinary people. Compared to the bodies of monsters, it was a difference of 108,000 miles. The claw slammed down, and blood-red light shot out in all directions. All of the cultivators were instantly crushed into mincemeat. A terrifying force poured down on the ground. Spiderweb-like cracks immediately spread out from the place where the ape's claw landed. The ape's claw sank more than 100 feet into the ground. After it was picked up, a huge hole appeared. How can you hurt me, the Black Ape King, with such an attack? It's like tickling me. It's too boring. You want to attack my southern barbarian monster clan with such little strength? You're really courting death. The Black Ape King stretched out its claw and patted its body. A lot of its fur was burnt, but it did not cause too much damage to it. Its defensive power was too strong. It stuck out its tongue and licked its lips. Its bloodthirsty light instantly rose. Oh my god, this is too scary. Magic spells can't hurt it all. How can we fight it? This Black Ape King's monster body is too strong. Its defense is too terrifying. We Chi refinement cultivators can't break it at all. A large number of immortal cultivators cried out in horror. They could only blame themselves for being unlucky. The Black Ape King's other innate abilities were its tough skin and flesh, shocking strength, and strong defense. Among the demonic beasts, it was one of the best. If that round of attack had been directed at other demonic beasts, no matter how strong they would have suffered heavy injuries. Unfortunately, they chose the wrong target. Don't be discouraged. Everyone, work together, and we will definitely be able to kill this monster ape. Zhong Yunfei hurriedly shouted when he saw that the confidence of the cultivators was about to collapse under the Black Ape King's shocking monster aura. Sword fingers burst out of his hand, and he pointed behind him. Clang! With a crisp sound, the demon-slaying sword on Zhong Yunfei's back was unsheathed. A dazzling sword light soared into the sky, and a snow-like sword chi burst out in all directions, as if it was solid. The sword chi was extremely sharp, pushing the surrounding cultivators out on the spot. The surrounding stones were crushed by the sword chi on the spot. Zhong Yunfei did not stop. His hands danced quickly, and in the blink of an eye, he formed a sword seal. He looked at the Black Ape King with a cold gaze and shouted, "Demon-slaying sword art. Jade Lotus descends to slay evil." The sword seal landed on the demon-slaying sword, and immediately the ancient sword trembled violently. Countless rays of sword light shot out from the sword, and the light grew brighter like a crystal sun. In this light, the ancient sword that was wrapped in it could no longer be seen. At this moment, sparkling and translucent jade lotuses formed one after another. In the blink of an eye, the white light dissipated, and the number of jade lotuses increased to a shocking number of dozens. Short snow-white petals fell from these jade lotuses, and as they fell, they carried a mysterious charm. In the blink of an eye, under the endless supply of jade lotuses, the sky was filled with gorgeous petals. They fell from the sky and directly covered the Black Ape King in a rain of petals. Black Ape King, be careful. These petals are all formed by sword chi, and their attack power is very strong. You must not be careless. When Di Shirtian saw the sky full of lotus petals, he immediately recalled the battle with Zhong Yunfei in the Nameless Valley. He had personally experienced the terror of these beautiful petals. Even his demon body could not withstand them and was easily cut open. The attack power was so strong that it could be said to be terrifying. He quickly shouted. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact it happened in the blink of an eye. Di Shirtian and Medusa also arrived at the same time. Kill! Medusa's cold gaze swept across the large number of cultivators gathered in front of her. Her eyes were indifferent, and her red lips moved slightly. A cold word naturally came out her mouth. This word caused the surrounding air to suddenly turn cold. All the cultivators who heard it couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. Medusa did not personally attack when she spat out those icy words. Instead, she gently shook her head. Immediately, one could see that her head, full of snake hair, suddenly began to dance violently. Colorful, poisonous snakes continuously shot out from her head like a geyser. As soon as these poisonous snakes landed on the ground, they quickly wriggled a few times. Then a strange thing happened. It was as if they had obtained a huge amount of power. Their originally small bodies suddenly began to expand. Their small bodies were like inflated balloons, fiercely expanding. In a few breaths, the poisonous snakes all turned into giant pythons as thick as an adult's waist. Each of these giant pythons had a powerful life force. They were definitely not illusory. Even the scales on their bodies could be seen clearly. There were hundreds of them. Once they turned into giant pythons, They all emitted a fierce light and rushed into the crowd of cultivators. As expected, every monster has an extremely powerful technique. The Black Ape King has boundless strength and strong defense. Medusa's snake hair actually has such a miraculous ability. To be able to turn into a giant python, what a good technique. When Tirtian saw these few attacks, his heart could not help but tremble. He knew that as long as one could become the king of monsters, none of them were simple. Compared to ordinary monsters, they were simply much stronger. This group of cultivators has their eyes on me and the psychic compass. This time, with Medusa and the others together, I can also act boldly. Tirtian's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Killing was originally beneficial to him. His soul could strengthen the divine ability of the purple royal mark, and his body could be refined into essence chi to increase his cultivation. The universe of the chess world, all rivers to the sea, absorb. Just as Tirtian was about to make a move, a sudden shout came from midair. Then he saw a flash of white light in front of him. His body seemed to be wrapped by a mysterious force. However, it was unusually fast. In almost the blink of an eye, it disappeared, and the scene in front of him changed drastically. Where is this? He took a closer look and realized that he was standing on a white, jade-like surface. Furthermore, there were horizontal and vertical lines on the white, jade-like surface. They separated the jade ground. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. I support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 93. Sakura was astonished in his heart. His tall body instantly covered the scene in front of him. These lines intersected to form intersections, and the place where he was actually in the middle position of the 9 palaces. In front of him, there was a huge battlefield as far as the eye could see. However, on the opposite side of the battlefield, there was a similar field. Moreover, in the opposite field, there was not only one person like him. A general in blood-red armor sat on the throne with an extraordinary momentum. In front of him, there was a giant elephant that was no less than him, and next to him, there was a cold archer. In the sky above, a cultivator in yellow robes was standing in the air. His body exuded a strong sense of confidence and calmness. This is Tirtian's eyes flashed with a faint doubt. He didn't know why, but when he saw the battlefield in front of him, he had a very familiar feeling, as if he had seen it before. As he watched the battlefield for a longer time, the sense of familiarity in his heart would become stronger every time he looked at it. The diagrams of the 9 palaces were separated by horizontal and vertical lines. There was a river boundary in the middle, and the size of the river boundary on both sides was exactly the same as the boundary on the ground. Tirtian's mind flashed, and all kinds of things he saw were connected together. His eyes suddenly showed an incredible look, and he exclaimed, "Is this a chessboard?" It was no wonder that when he compared the scene in front of him with the chessboard in his memory of his previous life, it was almost the same. Standing in the position of the 9 palaces, it was obvious that it was the position of the general, and in the middle, it was the Chu and Han River boundary. He was actually on a chessboard. It seemed that this chessboard should be a magic weapon. Just now, it was this magic weapon that took him into the chessboard. However, what kind of attacking means does this chessboard magic weapon have? Demon Tiger, you Southern Barbarian Demon Beast have never interfered with the training of low-level cultivators in the immortal cultivation world. Today, you have gathered so many demon beasts. Do you want to completely oppose the immortal cultivation world? Aren't you afraid that the entire Southern Barbarian will be destroyed? It was Chi Wujio, the chess addict, who had sucked Tirtian into the chessboard. Chi Wujio said in a deep voice as he looked at Tirtian's figure on the chessboard. He knew that demonic beasts could speak human language and understand human language. Moreover, their intelligence was not inferior to any human. They could not be treated like those ignorant beasts on the spot. This time, all the demonic beasts had attacked together. This was definitely abnormal. He was extremely confused about this. He sucked Tirtian into his personal ritual artifact, the Go World. He was in no hurry to fight him to the death. Oomph. Of course, Tion knew the reason. He had planned all these by himself. He thought to himself, if I don't kill you and drive you out, I will be the one in real danger. The one who strikes first gains the advantage, and the one who strikes last suffers. I have known this for hundreds of years. Of course, he was not an idiot to say this out loud. He looked coldly at Chi Wujiu and said indifferently, the southern barbarian land belongs to the demon tribe. You cultivators have gathered a large number of people to enter the mountain and wantonly kill and capture the spirit beasts and demons in the mountain. You have killed my kind. Today, we will kill your group of cultivators. Humph! You humans can kill my demon tribe. Do you think we can't kill your cultivators because there are no demons in the southern barbarian land? All living things were free in the frost world. Shirtian's words made Chi Wujiu's face change, but he did not say anything to refute. You killed spirit beasts and captured spirit beasts, but you didn't allow the demon tribe to kill cultivators? There was no such thing in the world. If you kill all the thousands of cultivators here, aren't you afraid of attracting the experts of the immortal cultivation world? Chi Wujiu looked at Shirtian and said in a low voice, you may not know that the reason why the southern barbarian land is allowed to exist is for the young disciples of the immortal cultivation world to gain experience. Once they find that you have enough power to threaten them, not only the spirit beasts and demons in the southern barbarian land will die, but you will also die. Shirtian was shocked by the meaning of Chi Wujiu's words. However, with his tenacious mind, he recovered in an instant and said coldly, before we die, I will kill you first. Roar. After saying that, a low tiger roar came out of its mouth. Its huge body shook violently, and all the pores on its body opened at the same time. Wisps of black, demonic aura gushed out from the pores like spring water. The wisps intertwined and formed a thick demonic fog in the blink of an eye. With a single thought, the demonic mist outside his body began to surge violently like boiling water. Boom, boom, boom. The demonic mist instantly expanded outwards, and in the blink of an eye, it rapidly shrank back. Countless demonic mist condensed together, in a series of clang, 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 clang. A series of clear metallic sounds rang out. This is... Chi Wujiu's eyes flashed with shock. Outside the Sakra's enormous body, the original demonic fog had mysteriously disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by pitch-black crescent moon-shaped blades. These blades flew up and down around his body. They continuously danced in the air, covering every angle of attack. This scene was extremely shocking. In this world, the strong are respected. Although the demon race has declined, the southern barbarian lands are still our territory. You can't do whatever you want. Demon Chi Blade, slash. Shirtian sensed 15 demon Chi blades around him, and a strong desire to fight rose in him. He didn't know if there would be more powerful immortal cultivators in the future, but he knew that if he didn't kill this group of immortal cultivators, he would be in danger. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir, and water with an earth weir. The most important thing now was to deal with the situation. Clang! With a crisp sound, one of the demon Chi blades emitted a faint layer of black mist. The blade vibrated violently, and the air around it vibrated violently. Then, under Shirtian's control, it drew a bright black light in the air and struck Chi Wujiu, who was hovering above the chessboard, like a bolt of lightning. The place he was in was too strange. It was the first time for Sakura to encounter such a thing. He instinctively felt that he was in the chessboard, as if he was a chess piece of the opponent. This feeling was very bad, so he did not hesitate to launch an attack. Moreover, the target of the attack was not the 3 strange sculptures on the chessboard, but directly at Chi Wujiu. No matter how strong a Dharma artifact was, it was still controlled by a person. As long as the owner of the Dharma artifact was killed, the Dharma artifact would not be able to unleash its full power. He could break this strange chessboard in one fell swoop. The demon Chi blades slashed from bottom to top, like Ho, shooting down the sun. A sharp, murderous aura condensed from the blade and rushed toward Chi Wujio. The powerful stimulation made Chi Wujio's hair stand on end, but he did not panic. He shouted, "Battle soul of the chess world, divine decree of the arrow god, mysterious ice arrow." As soon as he shouted, a shocking change happened on the chessboard below. The archer who was standing on the chessboard and holding a blood-red longbow suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes flashed with a sharp aura like that of an arrow. He reached out and pulled out a sparkling arrow from his back, knocked the bow, and pulled the arrow. The muscles on his arms surged violently like dragons, and a longbow in his hands was pulled into a full moon. Strands of energy surged into the snow-white arrow. As a result, the arrow began to emit a thick layer of white gas, shining with a crystalline light. Strands of wondrous energy poured into the arrow wildly in the chess world, causing the presence that the arrow gave off to suddenly more than double its original size. Whoosh! When the arrow left the bow, it was like a meteor chasing after the moon. In an instant, it streaked across a large area of space. Its target was the demonic mist blade that was about to be chopped down. As the divine arrow flew past, a dense cold chi rapidly spread throughout the chessboard. Bang! The divine arrow arrived first and collided with the demonic mist blade. The blade of the demonic mist blade trembled violently and burst out with a sharp blade light and a huge amount of demonic chi. In an instant, the power of the blade became even stronger. The tip of the divine arrow mysteriously collided with the blade, and a dense white fog burst out from the arrow. The cold air was like a tide, covering the surroundings on the spot. Layers of ice appeared out of thin air. In the blink of an eye, the demon mist blade was sealed in a huge ice crystal. The cold air was so terrifying that even the demonic aura was sealed in ice. These elephants and soldiers on the chessboard are indeed chess pieces. This is really a chessboard. The methods of immortal cultivators are truly mysterious, to be able to craft ritual implements like this. Di Shurtian saw this and was not discouraged. He did not expect this attack to hurt Chi Wujio. His intention was only to test his opponent's methods. As expected, the chessboard was just as he had guessed. It really did have mysterious powers, and the chess pieces on the chessboard were the real attack power. Furthermore, the power of the attack was so strong that it was completely shocking. Chess soul war elephant, hooked the sky and searched the earth. Chi Wujio was clearly an expert with a lot of experience in combat. He was very familiar with his own natal artifact. When he saw that the demonic mist blade had been sealed in ice and could no longer cause any damage, he shouted again and used the power of the chess world. Roar! The huge war elephant that was originally motionless like the arrow god also opened its eyes in an instant and let out a huge roar. Its eyes were filled with fighting spirit as it looked at the Sakura. Suddenly, it swung its head and endless power from the surroundings surged into its body. Then, its elephant trunk suddenly emitted bursts of white light. In the light, that elephant trunk was like Sun Wukong's golden cudgel, growing crazily. In almost the blink of an eye, it had become dozens of feet long. Its huge body was motionless, but the elephant trunk was like a spirit snake, nimbly sweeping towards the Sakura. The world of chess was the product of Chi Wujio's life's blood, sweat, and tears. He had used innumerable materials to create it. Even though there were only 3 chess pieces on the chessboard, no, there were no ordinary chess pieces. I want to write at least 3 chapters and write as much as I can. Perhaps there will be 4 chapters. I want to finish this battle in one go. In this battle, there will definitely be extraordinary excitement. All kinds of ritual implements and treasures will appear. This is the key turning point in Di Shurtian's growth, the beginning of his accumulation of strength. It can be said that this is the beginning of the myriad demons. Chapter 94. If the refinement of the chessboard required a large amount of materials, then the chess soul was even more complicated. The technique used was even more mystical, and it was a secret technique for refining puppets. Moreover, the puppets were different from other puppets. The materials required for each puppet were materials that ordinary itinerant cultivators would never be able to collect in their entire lives. The most mystical and ingenious part was that the puppets were not just lifeless pieces of wood. They all had fighting souls. Or fighting souls. To put it bluntly, they were the souls of living creatures that had perished. For example, the fighting soul of the master archer in the chess world was the soul of a master archer that Chi Wujio had collected on the battlefield. He had infused the fighting soul into the puppet's body and used various secret techniques to nurture it. With the passage of time, it would become a part of the chess world and was known as the chess soul. The same was true for the war elephant. Within its body was the fighting soul of a huge elephant. Under the nourishment of the chess world, these chess souls could grow stronger as the ritual implement grew. Each of them possessed incredible and mystical powers. With the power of the chess world, they could unleash 1 to 200% of their formidable might. Now, there were only 3 chess souls, and they already possessed such formidable might. If he were to replenish all the chess souls in the chess world, the ritual implements would become even more powerful. Roar! Di Shirtian roared in a low voice. His body shook, and the majestic might of the tiger spewed out like a tidal wave. Although one of the demonic mist blades had been frozen, there were still more than a dozen sharp blades around him. When he saw the chess soul war elephant's trunk unexpectedly become so long and nimbly wrap around him, Yi Futian was shocked. The elephant trunk was the most powerful part of an elephant. If one were to be wrapped around by the elephant trunk, no matter how strong one was, one would be sent flying backward and have all the bones in one's body crushed. If one were to be wrapped around by the elephant trunk, the 2 white jade tusks at the side of the elephant trunk's mouth would stab into one's body. It would take one's life on the spot. It was extremely domineering. Di Shirtan, who was well aware of this, saw the long elephant trunk appear in front of him like the Milky Way across the void. His eyes were filled with coldness. 10,000 blades in one slashed through the elephant trunk. Amidst this shout, the demonic mist blades that were flying up and down around him simultaneously emitted bursts of resplendent black light. Like 10,000 swords returning to their origin, they rapidly appeared in the air above his head. From all directions, they headed towards the same spot, and with astonishing speed, they collided with each other with lightning-like speed. Clang! More than a dozen blades collided with each other, but only a clear sound rang out. When they collided, the black, demonic light completely exploded. It was like a black sun. Countless blade chi broke through the air, creating whistling sounds. An incomparably huge crescent blade hung above Yi Chen's head. Within the blade, waves of sharp blade chi surged and burst forth. This was the gigantic blade formed by a dozen or so demonic mist blades. The aura it emitted was many times stronger than a single blade. Once the blade was formed, he did not hesitate at all and heavily chopped down at the elephant trunk that was sweeping over with an overbearing aura. Clang! The demonic mist blade emitted a shocking blade light as it slashed out like lightning. When the blade was swung out, a fierce killing intent pierced through the heavens and earth. Fast, the blade moved at an inconceivable speed. When the elephant trunk was about to wrap around Di Shirtian, it directly cut through the middle of the elephant trunk. Roar! The elephant standing in front of him raised its head and let out a shocking roar. A layer of white light burst forth from its long elephant trunk in an attempt to block the sharp attack of the demonic mist blade. However, the demonic mist blade was formed by the fusion of more than a dozen blades. The power it contained was truly astonishing. The light burst forth from the elephant trunk, and after a fierce collision, it was instantly cut open and landed on the elephant trunk. The elephant trunk was actually cut off in an instant by a burst of resplendent black blade light. A foundation establishment cultivator. As long as I can eat you and refine your flesh and blood into demonic chi, my strength will definitely increase greatly in a short period of time. Di Shirtian looked at Chi Wujio with a cold gaze. Demonic beasts are indeed incomparable to ordinary demons. That strange blade can actually cut off the elephant trunk. If such a demonic beast is killed, its demonic soul will be the best material for refining a chest soul. Its demonic chi will also condense into a demonic core at the moment of its death. Chi Wujio's expression instantly turned serious. The entire body of a demonic beast was a treasure. Although it could not condense a demonic core when it was alive, its spiritual chi and demonic chi would erupt in an instant after its death. At the moment of its death, it would condense a demonic core, which was the essence of the demonic beast. Demonic beasts did not have a demonic core in their bodies. In the immortal cultivation world, killing demonic beasts was a method of extracting demonic cores. Not many people could find and deal with real demonic beasts. Therefore, most of the demonic beasts killed were demonic beasts, and the demonic cores they extracted were condensed after their deaths. This was similar to how some eminent monks would condense sariras after their deaths. The sariras contained the essence of their entire life. It was the same principle for demonic beasts to condense demonic cores after their deaths. Chess World War Soul, Arrow God's Edict, Fiery Arrow. Chess World War Soul, War Elephant Edict, Elephant God's Leg. Chi Wujio was also a cultivator with rich combat experience. He did not shrink back just because of a momentary loss. He continued to shout softly, and under his control, the arrow god once again drew his longbow into a full moon. Layers of blazing flames appeared on the crystal-clear arrow. With the infusion of endless energy from the surroundings, the flames on the arrow became even more intense. With a whoosh, it shot towards the huge demonic mistblade. Everywhere it passed, it looked like a falling meteor, dragging a slender tail of fire. The temperature of the surrounding space suddenly increased, as if it was going to burn everything. The war elephant was even more terrifying. Its huge body directly rose into the air and soared into the sky. It appeared above Di Shirtian's head, like Tarzan. Its forelegs expanded in an instant, becoming several times larger on the spot. They were like giant pillars holding up the sky, glowing with a jade light. They pressed down on Di Shirtian without hesitation. Each leg of the elephant was half the size of Di Shirtian's body. If he was really stepped on, no matter how tough his demonic body was, he would be crushed into a pulp. A vast aura poured down from the top of his head, as if it could completely freeze the entire space. It was extremely terrifying. I can't fight it head-on. I'll dodge first, then attack recklessly. When Sakura saw the powerful aura of the war elephant that was like Mount Tai, he realized in a blink of an eye that even if he could resist such an attack, he would also suffer a lot of damage. Only temporarily dodging this attack and launching another attack was the best way. Without even thinking, his two hind legs stomped on the ground and pounced to the left. This pounce was abnormally ferocious, enough to cross a distance of hundreds of meters. However, an accident happened. Just as he pounced, a cage suddenly rose around him. With the 9 square meters as the boundary, his body was trapped in this range. He clawed at the cage. With a boom, the cage shook violently, but it didn't collapse. It blocked in front of him. The general sits in the 9 square meters. The generals lie down at both ends. Could it be that I am the general in this chessboard and can't leave the 9 square meters? Di Shirtian's mind shook violently. He didn't expect that such a thing would happen. The chessboard in front of him was a Chinese chessboard. The rules of chess were that the general couldn't leave the 9 square meters. This discovery made his heart skip a beat. It wasn't difficult to break the cage if he had time, but now that the war elephant's attack was coming, there was no time for him to dodge and break the cage. In this desperate situation, Di Shirtian's determination finally showed. There was no trace of panic in his 2 tiger eyes. Instead, they became colder. He looked up to the sky. Since I can't dodge, I'll fight you to the death today. With a tiger roar, Di Shirtian raised his tiger claw. The demon refining cauldron in the demon residence also seemed to feel the danger. Its rotation speed instantly increased by several times, dozens of times. Streams of pure demonic vitality were quickly thrown out of the cauldron, rushed out of the demon residence, and poured into the tiger claw through his meridians. Kill. Under the continuous pouring of demonic vitality, the tiger claw, which was already extremely huge, expanded violently again. Its thickness was no less than that of the elephant's leg. Waves of pitch-black demonic chi were constantly spewing out of every pore. In an instant, the entire tiger claw was completely wrapped in demonic chi. It looked even more ferocious. The sharp claws flashed with a sharp, cold light. Then, the tiger claw struck out toward the top of its head. The battle between Di Shirtian and Chi Wujio in the chess world was fierce. Outside, the battle was as fierce as it was in the chess world. Medusa didn't do anything personally. She just transformed her snake hair into giant pythons. Most of the cultivators were frightened out of their wits and kept fleeing. Of course, there were also many cultivators who banded together and fought the giant pythons one by one. Each of these giant pythons was no less powerful than a great perfection chi refinement cultivator. Their strength was close to that of a foundation establishment cultivator. Their huge bodies were unusually fierce when they fought. Many cultivators were swallowed into their bellies on the spot. Big Sister Medusa, Big Brother D, has been sucked into that Dharma artifact. He hasn't come out yet. Will he be in danger? Why don't you help him and break this lousy Dharma treasure? The vermilion bird saw Di Shirtian being sucked into the chess world with her own eyes. He disappeared with Chi Wujio. Only a jade-colored chessboard could be seen floating in midair. It emitted waves of jade light and looked unusually mysterious. Medusa looked up at the chessboard and said calmly, "Little Sister Juror, it's impossible that your big brother D doesn't have the ability to break this Dharma artifact. There's no need to worry." Judging from her expression, she didn't intend to help. The vermilion bird was about to say something else. However, it heard a piercing cry. Wah! Under the lead of the underworld Raven King, tens of thousands of underworld ravens appeared in the sky above the battlefield. Tens of thousands of cries gathered together. When they reached the cultivators' ears, they felt their hearts tremble violently. Unknowingly, a feeling of death rose in their hearts. The smelly crow is going to use his reaper's gaze. The vermilion bird's eyes were filled with excitement. First update received. There will be a second update at around 12 o'clock. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the legal reading. Chapter 95. As she called out, she looked at the battlefield in high spirits. She knew that the most terrifying ability of the Underworld Crow clan was this Death God's gaze. What was the Death God's gaze? As the name implied, it was the gaze of the Death God. The Death God had always represented death. Often, when people spoke of the Death God, it meant that a person's life was about to come to an end, and the Death God was looking at them. It was obvious that those who were noticed by the Death God wouldn't have a good ending. There was a good saying, if the king of hell wanted someone to die at midnight, who would dare to keep them alive until dawn? The gaze of the Death God was just like that. Once someone was seen by the gaze of the Death God, it would be as if the Death God had issued a death order. Their soul would be destroyed on the spot. Naturally, once the soul was destroyed, the body would stop breathing and die completely. This was a supreme innate ability that directly attacked a person's soul. Moreover, it was a unique ability of the Underworld Crow clan. Half of the terrifying reputation of the Underworld Crow clan was due to this Death God's gaze. Yes, the Death God's gaze of the Black Underworld Crow clan is an extremely powerful ability among demon beasts. If one doesn't have a powerful soul or a treasure that can nourish the soul, very few people can escape from his Death God's gaze. Medusa wasn't stingy with her praise for the Death God's gaze of the Underworld Crow King. Hee, big sister. The smelly crow's Death God's gaze is indeed powerful. However, Big Sister's Medusa's gaze isn't bad either. Compared to the smelly crows, its destructive power is even greater. He can only kill one person at a time. Once Big Sister uses it, all living beings that are seen by it will all turn into stone. Speaking of which, Big Sister is still the most powerful. The vermilion bird giggled as it stretched out its head and intimately examined Medusa's snow-white neck. As they spoke, the Underworld Crow King also made his move. The target he chose to attack was a person who was standing in midair. He quickly controlled a flying sword that flickered with golden light and continuously attacked the 4 huge apes that had followed the Black Ape King into the crowd of cultivators. The flying swords were abnormally sharp, and the 4 giant apes did not have the terrifying defense of the Black Ape King. Moreover, the flying sword glowed with golden light. It was a flying sword of the metal element. Among the 5 elements, metal was the element of killing, and its attack power was the sharpest and most powerful. Streaks of sword light fell like rain, intertwining and exploding, landing on the 4 giant apes. Each streak of sword light left deep wounds on their bodies, causing blood to spurt out. Wah! The Underworld Duck King flapped its wings in midair, and a thick layer of gray light suddenly appeared in its indifferent eyes. This light was formed from an unimaginable amount of death energy. From the moment the light appeared, it reached its peak in the blink of an eye. It was extremely dazzling, and a dense aura of death spread out continuously. On the ground, the flowers and trees that were originally full of life began to wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. The leaves of the towering ancient trees turned yellow and fell. The yellow leaves danced in the air, and the water and life in the trees seemed to disappear in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it turned incomparably yellow and withered completely. There was not the slightest bit of life in the trees. Death, this was the power of death. Underworld Crow King. No. When the cultivator who had already reached the foundation establishment heard that extremely ear-piercing and unpleasant sound, his heart thumped. He turned his head and saw the Underworld Crow King, whose body was completely black and overflowing with a dense aura of death. His face became filled with horror. In the past, he had heard of the terror of the Underworld Crow King, especially his Death God's gaze, which was known as the most terrifying ability. Once you encountered it, you could forget about escaping. The moment he saw the Underworld Crow King's eyes, the things he knew in the past appeared in his mind, and he suddenly felt waves of fear. He quickly pointed his sword finger at the Underworld Crow King, and in an instant, a flying sword that glowed with golden light turned into a golden stream of light, charging towards the Underworld Crow King like lightning. With this command, the flying sword speed was almost twice as fast as before. The sharp sound of it breaking through the air caused a sharp whistle, and in the whistling sound, the flying sword instantly appeared in front of the Underworld Crow King's neck. The sharpness emitted from the flying sword was already able to touch the body. However, the indifference in the Underworld Crow King's eyes didn't change in the slightest. Its 2 pitch-black wings folded in front of its body, like a person's hands suddenly hugging something, and the pair of wings completely protected its body under the wings. Clang! After all, the golden flying sword was driven by the full strength of a Foundation establishment cultivator. The sword contained an enormous amount of true essence, and the flying sword was of the metal attribute, so its attack power was the sharpest. When the 2 of them worked together, they immediately exploded with a shocking destructive power. In front of this flying sword, even steel would be instantly pierced and cut into countless pieces. However, when it pierced the Underworld Crow King's wings, only the sound of swords colliding with each other could be heard. Bursts of black light burst forth from the pitch-black wings, and a layer of gray gas surged out from its body. Whoosh! The radiance in the Underworld Raven King's eyes condensed to a pinnacle. Instantly, he looked at the Foundation establishment cultivator, and a burst of fierce death energy burst out from his eyes. It was soundless and without any signs of being seen. However, in that instant, that cultivator let out a shocking scream. His face turned deathly pale and was filled with fear. An indescribable expression of pain appeared on his face. The light in his eyes was actually fading bit by bit. When the underworld Raven King looked at him, he only felt a wave of intense and unbearable pain coming from within his body. This kind of pain wasn't emitted from his body, but from his soul, There was a terrifying power that was constantly destroying his soul. Even with the strength of a Foundation establishment cultivator's soul, it was unable to withstand such a terrifying attack, and his soul began to disperse on the spot. The power of the underworld Crow King's Death God's gaze is so strong that it can be said to be a great killing weapon against Foundation establishment cultivators. Even if it encounters a core formation cultivator of a higher level, it can still be an extremely strong threat. If it's a sneak attack, it can pose a fatal threat to core formation cultivators. Medusa couldn't help but lightly nod her head when she saw that the Foundation establishment cultivator's soul was easily destroyed by the Death God's gaze. This stinking crow could be considered to have some tricks up its sleeve. The vermilion bird said with a smile. Rumble. At this moment, the white jade chessboard that was suspended in midair suddenly began to tremble violently. Around the chessboard, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth violently surged, and waves of terrifying aura erupted from the chessboard. It was as if a peerless beast was about to rush out from the chessboard. Big sister, look, the chessboard is moving. Did Big Brother D defeat that guy? The vermilion bird opened her eyes wide and looked towards the sky. Medusa didn't say much and only looked up quietly. There seemed to be a strange and indescribable expression in her eyes, but it disappeared in a flash. The movement from the chessboard became louder and louder. The rumbling sounds continued, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the surroundings became increasingly violent. This change became more and more intense as time passed. This damned chessboard. Everywhere is a cage, and you are a cage. Today, I will completely break you. Tigers roar, shatter the heavens. There are traces of blood on D. Shur-Tion's body. On his strong tiger body, there were several huge wounds. Fresh blood was gushing out from these wounds. These wounds did not make him dispirited. Instead, his entire body was emitting a ferocious tiger aura. His two tiger eyes were emitting a shocking cold light. As he looked at Chi Wujio, his eyes contained a ferocious, murderous intent. Chi Wujio had an absolute advantage in the chess world. Not only would the strength of each attack more than double, but the chessboard was also like a cage that firmly trapped his movements, causing him to be at an absolute disadvantage from the beginning to the end. After an intense battle, although Chi Wujio managed to repel the attacks time and time again, several wounds appeared on his body. Under such an attack, Sakura was finally enraged. It was even more clear that he absolutely couldn't continue to play in this chessboard. Otherwise, he who was restricted would definitely suffer immeasurable damage. Whoosh! The huge tiger body stood proudly in the middle of the 9 palaces. His eyes were cold as he opened his bloody mouth and took a deep breath. In a split second, the air in front of him was swallowed into his stomach like a whale sucking in water. In the process of taking in the air, Sakura's 5 feet tall tiger body underwent another drastic change. Waves of demonic chi gushed out endlessly, and the tiger body glowed with black light amidst the demonic chi. It expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In a few breaths, D. Shur-Tion's body had unbelievably doubled in size, becoming a 30-meter-tall demonic beast. When the tiger's body grew bigger, the domineering tigers might continue to roll and spread out. This was a terrifying pressure that made people feel suffocated. It spread out like a tide, covering the entire chess world with this pressure in one fell swoop. Chi Wujio's expression changed when he felt this pressure. Without thinking, he immediately commanded the chess souls in the chessboard world to attack. Frost arrows, roaring flame arrows, bursting flame arrows, and the war elephant charge were all used. Only the general remained seated on his throne, unmoving. In the chessboard world, the battle between D. Shur-Tion and Chi Wujio had reached its climax. In a one-line sky, the Lee family was also stunned by the sudden attack of the demonic beasts. Fourth Elder, the demonic beasts that are attacking us this time are all the kings of the southern barbarian beasts. Each of them is as strong as a core formation cultivator. I'm afraid our plan to capture the demonic tiger is going to fail. Li Wan's face turned pale as he watched the thousands of cultivators retreating under the attacks of the demonic beasts. It's not going to fail. The Fourth Elder's eyes flashed with madness. His voice was cold as he said, "The demonic tiger is already here, isn't it? Although there are a lot of demonic beasts this time, as long as we activate our plan and target the demonic tiger, there's a high chance that we can kill the demonic tiger in one fell swoop. Once we kill the demonic tiger and take back the compass, the lives of the other cultivators have nothing to do with us." His words carried a heart-chilling coldness and ruthlessness. It was as if he didn't want to give up even at this point. He wanted to launch a fatal attack. He wanted to activate the prearranged attack. Sweat, I didn't think that I would go back on my words. It seems like I won't be able to complete the third update. However, I'm seriously adjusting it. At the very least, today's update time is much earlier than before. I'll try my best to update a chapter tomorrow morning. I definitely have to get my update status back. I definitely have to update 3 times a day. Chapter 96. All disciples of the Li family, listen to my order. Li Wan's eyes flickered several times. Finally, he made up his mind. With a determined look on his face, he gritted his teeth, looked at the group of disciples in the one-line sky, and called out, "Elder!" More than 20 disciples of the Li family stepped forward at the same time and answered respectfully. "Here are some jade talismans. Each of you will take one and carry it with you. Then go to the position that I told you before, listen to the signal from me and the Fourth Elder, and launch the attack. Whether you can take back the treasure of the family depends on you. When you return to the family, you will be rewarded handsomely." As Li Wan spoke, he took out jade-colored spiritual talismans from his storage bag and handed them to each disciple. Those disciples all wore these jade talismans with a cautious look on their faces. They were afraid of losing them. He agreed and immediately left the valley, heading in all directions. If one were to observe carefully, they would be able to faintly see that the direction they were heading in. If one were to connect them together, there seemed to be a faint trace of a mysterious charm. I only plan to deal with the demonic tiger. Since the other evil beasts broke in together, don't blame us for being ruthless and killing them all together. The evil beasts and the demon clan have been in decline for a long time. If it weren't for the support of the few remaining demon kings, the southern barbarians would have already wiped them out. The Fourth Elder looked at everyone who had rushed to the predetermined position and said coldly. Li Wan nodded and said, "Speaking of which, each of the demon kings is a powerful existence comparable to the old monster of the nascent soul realm. I heard that the most powerful of the demon kings have the strength beyond the nascent soul realm, especially the Bloodbat King, who is particularly terrible. He specializes in sucking human blood. Even the old monster of the nascent soul realm can only turn around and run away in front of him." There was a trace of fear in his tone. He instinctively resisted the power of the demon clan. Speaking of the Bloodbat King, he was very famous. He would suck all the blood out of anyone he met. When they died, they would turn into dried corpses. What's more, he liked to suck the blood of the strong cultivators in the immortal cultivation world. In his words, blood was like a heavenly treasure to him. It was the best product in the world. Therefore, the Bloodbat King might not be the strongest among the demon kings, but he was the most terrifying one. Just think about it. Watching one's own blood being sucked into someone else's body, feeling one's blood disappearing bit by bit, slowly dying, the kind of feeling would definitely send chills up one's spine from the bottom of one's feet to the top of one's head. What's there to be afraid of? No matter how powerful the Demon King is, we cultivators are the main characters right now. This time, we'll take the compass and leave immediately. Don't tell me they'll come all the way to South Ridge City to cause trouble for our Lee family. The Fourth Elder sneered. If the Demon King really dared to attack the Xiaoxian families, it would undoubtedly show that the Demon Clan was going to attack the Xiaoxian families. That would aggravate the relationship between the two clans and make the Demon Clan situation even more difficult. Generally speaking, in such a situation, even if there were powerful Demon Kings, they would not dare to recklessly engage in a direct confrontation. Roar! However, at this moment, in mid-air, an earth-shattering tiger's roar resounded domineeringly. It was incomparably huge, like thousands of thunderbolts on a clear day. On the ground, the stubborn rocks that were several meters high were almost instantly shattered. Dense cracks, like a spider web, appeared on the surface of the rocks. Then they mysteriously collapsed, piece by piece, turning into fine powder. The entire one-line sky kept roaring. The ground violently undulated, shook, and swayed continuously. It was as if the earth was about to collapse. Countless trees were shaken to death. Heaven and earth were silent. At this moment, all the previous sounds of slaughter completely disappeared. Only this overbearing, arrogant tiger's roar reverberated in the sky. Moreover, as time passed, the tiger's roar became more and more intense. Where did this tiger's roar come from? It's so powerful, my blood and chi can't be controlled. Not good. Quickly shut off all 6 senses. The tiger's roar contained a domineering power. At the same time as it shattered countless rocks, all the cultivators were enveloped by this tiger's roar. The moment the chi condensation cultivators heard the tiger's roar, the blood and chi in their bodies began to surge violently. A terrifying force was exerted on their bodies. The terrifying vibrations were displayed on their bodies. Imagine, even the rocks were instantly shattered into fine powder. With the cultivation of a chi condensation cultivator, how strong could their bodies be? The tiger's roar was all-pervasive. In almost the blink of an eye, more than half of the chi condensation cultivators had their internal organs shattered on the spot. Blood flowed out from their mouths, eyes, ears, noses, and other places. Their eyesight collapsed as they were shaken to death by the overbearing tiger's roar. Thousands of cultivators were shaken to death on the spot. The sky changed color and the wind blew violently. The sand and rocks on the ground flew. The scene was abnormally terrifying. Brother D's tiger's roar is truly domineering. It even attacked us together. If it weren't for my tough skin, I would have been severely injured. The Black Ape King cried out in pain as it slapped dozens of cultivators into meat paste. Not only did the tiger's roar envelop the cultivators, but even the monster kings did not manage to escape. All of them were enveloped. Of course, the ones who came this time were all monster kings. Their strength was far superior to that of normal monster beasts. As soon as they heard the tiger's roar, they all focused. On top of that, monster beast bodies were much stronger than cultivators. They could withstand the tiger's roar's attack. I didn't think that his tiger's roar would still possess such great might. And this is coming from an enchanted treasure. Less than 80% of its power is probably left. If he used it outside the enchanted treasure, the ground would collapse from the tremors. Medusa raised her eyes to look at the Go world in the air. Her eyes were filled with graveness. Boom, boom, boom. The chess world in midair trembled even more violently. Inside the chess world, Deshurtian's black, demonic aura billowed like ink. His huge body was like a small mountain. He opened his tiger's mouth and roared, causing the chess world to tremble violently. There was indeed water in the Chuhan River. However, at that moment, the water in the river exploded and shot up into the sky. It scattered everywhere, causing the chess world to feel like it was raining. With him as the center, circles of black ripples that could be seen by the naked eye quickly spread out in all directions. Wherever it went, everything became still. In front of him, one could see that there were ferocious, long arrows that were flickering with different kinds of light, shooting towards Sakura. But at this moment, in the midst of the black sound waves, after being shaken countless times by the sound waves, the sturdy long arrows were shaken into pieces and scattered down. You're trying to destroy my natal ritual implement. Chi Wujio's expression changed drastically. The jade-colored chessboard shook violently amidst the tiger's roar. He was connected to the chess world, so he could clearly feel that the chess world was crying out in pain. If this continued, the magical tool might be damaged by the shockwaves from the roar. Furthermore, the chess spirits in the chess world had cracks all over their bodies. Humph, get out of here. Chi Wuzhou looked at the chess spirits in the chess world with a pained expression. Those were all things that he had painstakingly crafted. Every single one of them was the result of his blood, sweat, and tears. There was no way he would allow them to be damaged. He had no choice but to glare at Di Shurtian. He knew that, given the power of the tiger's roar, the chess world was probably no longer able to trap him. If he were to keep him trapped in the chess world, it would only cause damage to his ritual implement. He quickly pointed at the chess world. In an instant, a huge hole suddenly appeared under Di Shurtian. At the same time, a powerful repulsive force appeared on his body, pushing him into the hole. Boom! Di Shurtian's huge body fell out of the chess world and landed on a small hill below. The hill could not withstand such a domineering force at all. The hill quickly cracked, and with a boom, it turned into countless pieces that shot out in all directions. Humph, this guy's pretty smart. Fortunately, you sent me out of that weird chessboard right away. Otherwise, I would have destroyed your ritual implement. As soon as Di Shurtian landed, he opened his eyes wide and quickly scanned his surroundings. The scene around him was reflected in his eyes. In front of him, there were corpses lying lifelessly on the ground, bleeding from all 7 orifices. It could be said that corpses were everywhere. Big Brother D, you're so awesome. You killed thousands of bad cultivators with just one roar. When the vermilion bird saw Di Shurtian finally come out of the ghost chess world, she quickly flapped her wings and chirped with a smile. Her eyes were filled with joy. Brother D, your tiger's roar is really useful. Golden Fur's lion's roar is not as domineering as yours. The Black Ape King also shouted. Obviously, Di Shurtian's tiger's roar had left a deep impression on him. Old Black, let's save these words for later. Let's get rid of these cultivators first. Di Shurtian looked forward and saw that there were still about 1,000 to 2,000 cultivators. Moreover, these cultivators were all the best among the cultivators who came this time. They could be said to be the elites. There were even a few Foundation establishment cultivators among them. That's true. Let's kill this group of cultivators first, the Black Ape King said with a big smile. He waved his hand and was about to attack again. Disciples of the Li family, listen up. Attack! 1,000-sword evil annihilation formation. Kill the demon tiger for me. At this moment, Li Wan and the 4th elder soared into the sky and let out a long roar. Their voices were exceptionally clear in such an environment. Clang, clang, clang. After the long roar, one could hear the sound of swords ringing in the air from outside the one-line sky. Following the sound of swords ringing in the air, streaks of sword chi rose into the sky and soared into the clouds. The sword chi rose one after another and vaguely surrounded the entire one-line sky. One could see that these sword chi rose from different directions. Moreover, within the sword chi, there was an unbelievably dense, murderous aura. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 97. 28 Streaks. A total of 28 streaks of sword chi rose up. These streaks of sword chi seemed to have condensed the baleful aura of heaven and earth. The enormous amount of baleful aura that was generated from the slaughter on the battlefield was like swallows returning to their nest. They separated into 28 solid streaks of black gas and crazily surged towards them. The sword chi and baleful aura intertwined together. In the blink of an eye, 28 huge black swords that seemed to be solid stood upright in the world. Each of them was like a mountain peak and was at least 30 meters tall. Mysterious patterns appeared on the black, baleful swords. The 28 baleful swords stood upright, as if they had a mysterious connection. They completely covered the area where they were wrapped up. Faintly, it was as if the entire world was imprisoned. Boom, boom, boom. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the surroundings violently surged and quickly gathered from all directions. In the sky above the one-line sky, it formed a huge spiritual energy vortex. An enormous amount of spiritual energy quickly surged into the baleful swords, causing the bodies of the baleful swords to become even more solid. It was as if they had truly become battle swords. Countless streaks of sword chi surrounded the baleful swords and unceasingly swept in all directions. They crazily bombarded all sorts of things. Many ancient trees were instantly turned into dust by the tens of thousands of streaks of sword chi. The power was extremely strong and extremely domineering. Aha! Everyone quickly look. The Leaf family has made a move. As expected of a first-rate cultivation family. Their moves are extraordinary. Looking at this aura, it's definitely a powerful formation. Let's see if it won't chop all these damned demon beasts into pieces. How could demon beasts defeat us cultivators? Kill. We must kill them all. Every part of a demon beast's body is a treasure. The remaining cultivators became excited at this moment. Every one of their eyes shone brightly as they excitedly looked at the baleful swords that soared into the sky. They madly screamed in their hearts. This time, they were definitely saved. The mood of surviving a calamity was abnormally high. Myriad sword, evil slaying formation? Not good, this is a formation. These cultivators really did plan this beforehand. They set up a killing formation here and wanted to kill all the demon beasts in the southern barbaric mountain range in one fell swoop. Humans are truly insidious. When the Golden Lion King saw the baleful swords that contained a mysterious power, the expression in his eyes instantly changed as he spoke in alarm. What are you afraid of? What kind of bullshit formation is this? I, Old Black, can smash them into pieces with one hand. Break it. The Black Ape King was still as valiant as ever. He opened his mouth and shouted loudly, completely unconcerned about the formation. However, Medusa looked at the surrounding sword pillars with a grave expression. She said coldly, "Quick, shatter all these sword pillars." The formation connects to the power of the world and possesses all sorts of inconceivable powers. This myriad sword, evil slaying formation is a killing formation. If we don't break the formation before it activates, we'll be in great danger. Formations were miraculous methods of communicating with the energy of heaven and earth. Any formation had to be connected to heaven and earth to be able to unleash all kinds of miraculous power. For example, the maze formation was connected to the earth to create a dense fog that made people unable to see their direction. Although people kept walking, they couldn't walk out of the area. Therefore, an inconspicuous formation could produce 10 times or even 100 times the power when its true power was unleashed. A formation grandmaster could unleash a formation that could stop an army of thousands and kill thousands of powerful cultivators. What they relied on was the power of the formation. The various miraculous aspects of formations were simply innumerable and difficult to enumerate. As Medusa spoke, she swung her head. Her snake hair fluttered, and a few huge, poisonous pythons charged ferociously towards one of the sword pillars, intending to destroy it. It's too late. Disciples of the Leaf family, listen up. Activate the sword formation and kill the demon tiger quickly. The fourth elder's face was ferocious as he yelled, "Buzz, buzz, buzz!" All the sword pillars emitted loud cries at the same time. Tens of thousands of pitch-black sword chi constantly gushed out from the sword pillars, covering the sky and covering the earth. In the blink of an eye, the entire formation was covered by sword chi, and the venomous pythons were instantly shredded to pieces. Myriad sword, evil slaying formation. The sword chi didn't immediately descend. Instead, they continuously intertwined and fused together in the air above the formation. These sword chi originally came from the same source. Once they fused together, under the mysterious power of the formation, They quickly condensed into 3-foot-long evil swords. These evil swords were incomparably black, and each one emitted a chilling, evil chi. The ferocious, murderous aura was unmistakable. Boundless demonic chi poured down from the sky like a tidal wave. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of evil swords were condensed in the air. The tips of the swords were pointed downwards, and they were constantly moving towards each other. Sharp sword chi was emitted from the swords as they rotated rapidly. Tens of thousands of demonic swords covered the sky and the earth, filling the entire space. Kill! Clang, clang, clang. With a cold shout, the tens of thousands of demonic swords formed by the sword chi were mixed with terrifying power. With the power of the formation, they crazily fell on all the living beings below. Not only did they cover D, Shirtion, and Medusa, but they also covered the remaining cultivators. The attack of the formation came down indiscriminately. Boundless demonic chi formed a pitch-black demonic cloud above the formation. The wind and clouds reversed, and the sky changed color. A huge amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth poured into the sword formation continuously. What's going on? We're on the same side. Let us out of the formation. Why are you attacking us too? Stop. The Leaf family is so vicious. The Leaf family wants to kill us all. What a terrifying sword formation. Everyone, break the sword formation, or we'll all die in it. Countless demonic swords with dense black light poured down. Each of the swords had terrifying offensive power. Many of the cultivators were not prepared at all. The Leaf family actually attacked them too. They screamed as the swords pierced through their bodies and cut them into pieces. Their bodies were cut into hundreds and thousands of pieces. It was a horrible sight. Ha ha! How dare you fight with the Leaf family for the psychic compass? All of you deserve to die. Today, the Leaf family will not only kill the demonic beasts, but none of you can escape. Kill! The fourth elder laughed sinisterly. He commanded the sword formation and rushed towards D. Shirtion. The pitch-black demonic swords suddenly gathered together and turned into a huge and ferocious black dragon. The black dragon swung its tail, and the air shook violently. There were continuous explosions and muffled sounds. Then it fiercely pounced on D. Shirtion. The dense demonic chi rushed towards him as if it was going to completely freeze the air. It was very terrifying. The Leaf family's real target was still D. Shirtion. Killing D. Shirtion and taking back the psychic compass was the Leaf family's real goal. As for those cultivators, they were just taking advantage of the situation. This black dragon was completely formed by the demonic swords. It gathered an extremely terrifying, murderous aura and targeted D. Shirtion. On the spot, all the hair on D. Shirtion's body stood on end. Each hair stood upright like a needle. It was like a hedgehog. Without any hesitation, he directly took a deep breath in front of him. As he inhaled, his body continued to expand. In the blink of an eye, he became even more terrifying. He thought to himself, "The Leaf family knows from those cultivators that the psychic compass I obtained is the family treasure of the Leaf family. The cultivator I killed at Tiger Hill was also from the Leaf family. The Leaf family and I have a deep enmity. Now, more than half of the formation's power is directed at me. It seems that the Leaf family wants to kill me and take back the compass. However, I, D. Shirtion, am not someone who could be killed by just anyone." D. Shirtion saw that the tens of thousands of demonic swords had gathered together to form a ferocious black dragon. The black dragon was formed by countless demonic swords and was surrounded by sword chi. Not to mention touching it. Even if it touched it, it would be ground to pieces by the tens of thousands of sword chi. It was truly the embodiment of 1,000 cuts. With only a slight thought and the cries of the cultivators who died under the demonic swords, he understood that this was the doing of the Leaf family. The sword formation was also set up by the Leaf family. The true target was him. This breath was like a whale sucking in water. The sword formation's power was boundless. The black dragon formed from the formation possessed terrifying killing power. A single demonic sword was enough to kill a cultivator. Now that tens of thousands of demonic swords had gathered together, even a core formation cultivator might not necessarily be able to withstand their power if they were to erupt, let alone a demonic beast. He couldn't let the black dragon reach him. Otherwise, he would definitely die. In that instant, D. Shirtion circulated the tiger's roar technique with all his might. The demon refining cauldron in the demonic abode began to spin at an unprecedented speed. It spun so fast that even its shape couldn't be seen clearly. Within the jade cauldron, black demonic liquid quickly flowed out of the demonic abode and rushed into his meridians. Then it immediately poured into his throat. The faster the demon refining cauldron spun, the faster the essence chi of the corpses that were sucked into the cauldron was rapidly refined into demonic chi and rushed into his throat. His meridians circulated to their limits. Dense demonic chi gushed out like ink. Roar. Although it took a long time to describe, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. D. Shirtion looked at the black dragon with a trace of madness and arrogance in his eyes. He opened his bloody mouth, and the demonic chi he sucked and circulated 9 times in his body before roaring out of his throat. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shattering tiger roar resounded once again. With Sakura as the epicenter, the ground beneath his feet constantly rumbled and trembled violently. Dense cracks crazily appeared, and the ground collapsed with a loud bang. It was as if a super earthquake had swept through the area. The remaining cultivators were shaken to the point of spitting out blood. Their faces were pale. Even if they shut off their 6 senses, they still couldn't resist the sound waves of the tiger's roar. At this moment, D. Shirtion's tiger's roar changed completely under the pressure and stimulation of the sword formation. Second update yesterday. I wrote a little late yesterday. When I finished writing, I had already disconnected from the internet. Sorry. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 98. The roar of the tiger immediately unleashed a powerful attack. 90% of the cultivators were killed, leaving only a few with treasures or cultivation bases at the foundation establishment stage. However, their faces were deathly pale, and their bodies were like sieves. They trembled uncontrollably, and their eyes were filled with terror. This was still Sakura's tiger's roar. Under his control, more than half of the power was exerted on that black dragon condensed from the baleful sword. The black dragon that originally carried a strong pressure that was rapidly pouncing over was actually shaken to a halt by the tiger's roar. It trembled unceasingly, and sharp swords appeared on its surface, as if it was about to be shaken to the point of dispersing. Operate the sword formation with all your might. We must kill the demonic tiger. Liwan's face was unusually ferocious as he roared loudly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In his roar, the 28 sword pillars that stood in all directions trembled violently. As they trembled, a large amount of sword chi gushed out from the sword pillars. They turned into countless evil swords and surged into the body of the black dragon. With the support of the new power, the black dragon, which was about to collapse due to the tiger's roar, was reformed. It roared and continued to charge towards D. Shirtion. One of its dragon claws stretched out, and the sharp sword chi tore the air apart. Die, demonic tiger. The dragon claws were above his head, grabbing downwards. D. Shirtion felt a chill in his bones. No, I won't die. I can't die. Since I have embarked on the path of demon cultivation, my life is in my own hands. No one can take my life away except me. His eyes were cold, but his heart was screaming crazily. The moment the thought of controlling my life and not the heavens appeared, it stuck to him like a parasite. He could not get rid of it and could not get rid of it. It kept circling in his mind, and every time it rang out, the light in his eyes grew brighter. An aura of only himself was growing in his heart. In his previous life, he didn't blame anyone but himself for his tragic death. Now that he had the chance to be reborn, he would absolutely not allow anyone or even any living being to take away his life. In the past, this was just a thought that was buried in the bottom of his heart. It was a weak seed. If there were no accidents, it might take a very long time for it to grow. However, at this moment, under the pressure of death, this seed finally grew wildly. In the blink of an eye, it grew into a towering tree. A kind of only me, a kind of my life is in my own hands aura suddenly burst out from Sakura's body until it soared into the sky. Under this kind of extreme aura, Sakura seemed to exist alone in the world, proud and aloof. Roar! Another tiger's roar erupted from his mouth. Rings of black sound waves suddenly reversed, turning into sharp crescent-shaped sound blades. Every sound blade seemed to be between tangible and intangible, but their surface seemed to be solid. With astonishing speed, they instantly landed on the black dragon's body. Crack! The black dragon was formed by countless evil swords. Its body was incomparably hard, and its attack power was unparalleled. If caught by its dragon claws, even the body of a monster would be riddled with holes. However, these sound blades were even more powerful than the evil swords. When they hit the dragon claws, a part of the dragon claws was cut off. The part that was cut off separated and turned into broken evil swords. Then they collapsed into sword chi. They disappeared without a trace. Moreover, these sound blades were formed from the sound waves of the tiger's roar. As Indra's tiger roar continued, the sound blades continued to condense. It was like a turbulent wave, rushing towards the black dragon, covering the sky and covering the earth. This was not an ordinary wave, but a wave formed by sound blades. Each sound blade was extremely sharp. When they rushed to the front of the black dragon was like a drowning person who could not swim. Its huge body was quickly drowned by the sound waves. Its body was quickly cut into thousands of pieces and scattered. Sound blades. How is this possible? At this moment, outside the one-line sky, a middle-aged man could not help but be so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. This person had a noble aura and wore a long green robe. He had been standing on a towering tree with cold eyes, watching the fierce battle in the one-line sky. However, his gaze would occasionally sweep over Chu Yun and Zhong Yunfei. Clearly, he paid more attention to them. With a special kind of concern, he held a jade-colored arm in his right hand. That jade-like hand was vivid and lifelike, as if it was a real arm. Even the palm lines on the palm were flawless. If it wasn't for the fact that the arm was of a different color, it would have been a human hand. Seeing that Di Shirtian was actually able to condense the wave-like sound waves into sharp crescent-shaped sound blades, his face suddenly became rather ugly. Sound wave techniques were the most miraculous power in the world. This was because sound was completely independent of the 5 elements of the world, yin, yang, and 5 elements. It was not one of them. Therefore, there were not many methods in the world that could turn sound into an attack. Cultivation methods were extremely rare. Similarly, cultivation methods and artifacts that could resist sound waves were shockingly rare. And in the sound wave technique, there are a few realms. For example, the lowest realm is to use sound to roar at people, using sound to shake heaven and earth. This is just like what Sakura did previously. With a tiger's roar, when the sound wave came, the rocks and trees in the surroundings were all shaken into powder. The collapse of the earth all belonged to this category. This was also the foundation of sound wave techniques. It was the cornerstone that ran through all realms. Without this ability, it was extremely difficult to achieve anything. This meant that one would not have great achievements in sound wave techniques. Next, it was the sound waves that were like tides. This meant that the sound waves had materialized and could be used to attack the enemy. Moreover, the attack scene was like rolling waves, wave after wave, endless. Di Shirtian had already reached this realm before. He could release sound waves to attack the enemy. This way, the attack produced was another level above the pure sound. Its power was even more powerful. Furthermore, just like what was happening now, the sound wave had turned into a sound blade, and it had truly turned into a tangible weapon to attack. Because the sound wave had taken the form of a weapon, the sound wave was originally formless and formless. However, when it condensed into a tangible weapon, the attack power and sharpness of such a weapon had reached an unimaginable level. Compared to the artifacts of immortal cultivators, not only would they not be weaker, but they would also be more powerful. From a scene when Di Shurtian had collided with the sword formation, one could tell that its power was definitely not exaggerated at all. This realm was called Soundblades. Not only that, but there were even higher realms above this realm. Therefore, in the world, those who could cultivate sound wave techniques to a high level were usually not people who dare to provoke them. Those people's cultivation was far stronger than those in the same realm. When the green-robed man saw the sound blades dancing in the sword formation, his eyes narrowed, and he decisively said, "We can't continue to watch. We must break the sword formation and then leave with Yun Air. Otherwise, with so many demonic beasts gathered together, if they really go crazy, even I might not be able to stop them." With that, the jade-like hand in his hand suddenly emitted an intense jade light. In the blink of an eye, the jade light became incomparably powerful. The most mysterious thing was that within the jade light, tiny meridians appeared on the jade-like hand. It was as if it really was a living hand and not a magic treasure. "Demon resisting hand, break the sword formation for me." The jade-like hand flew into the air and rapidly expanded in the jade light. It became incomparably huge, like a pillar that supported the sky. The jade-like hand covered the sky and appeared above the sword formation. It actually covered the entire sword formation with one hand. Everyone below could clearly see the palm lines on the jade-like hand. The jade-like light illuminated the entire sky. There seemed to be a mysterious power within the jade hand that could pinch the heavens and earth, but this aura only appeared for a moment before disappearing. It was as if it had never appeared, so it didn't attract anyone's attention. A vast amount of power continued to pour out from the jade hand. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Her jade-like hand quickly descended. Within the jade-like glow, there seemed to be a terrifying pressure that was as heavy as a mountain or prison. As it descended, the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth crazily surged, continuously surging and emitting a terrifying sound. Terrifying muffled sounds continuously rang out in the surrounding air. The berserk energy quickly spread out in all directions, directly dispersing the black fiendish clouds above the sword formation. Not good. This is a magic treasure. There's a core formation cultivator nearby. He wants to break our sword formation. The moment the jade hand appeared, the fourth elder had already noticed it. When it first appeared, he didn't have time to doubt it. Then he saw the terrifying pressure and energy fluctuations emitted by the jade hand. He immediately realized that this jade hand was definitely not a magic treasure, but a magic treasure. A powerful magic treasure. Under the jade hand, he could almost hear it. Although the jade hand didn't immediately fall, the sword formation let out a series of clear vibrations, as if it had already sensed the terrifying power coming from the jade hand. Rumble, rumble, rumble. When the jade hand fell within a certain range, the 28 huge sword pillars immediately burst out with pitch-black sword lights that connected the heavens and the earth. The sword pillars shook, and countless pitch-black sword chi soared into the sky. In an instant, the target of the attack was changed, and the sword chi madly attacked the jade hand. The air was filled with chaotic crackling sounds. It was extremely terrifying. "Humph! You want to block my demon resisting hand with this little sword formation?" Although the sword formation is not bad, the person who used it is too weak. You're just a little chi refining cultivator. You really don't know what's good for you. Break for me. When the green-robed person saw this, she sneered indifferently. The jade light on the demon resisting hand burned brightly and spread out. Under the jade light, all the sword chi was completely crushed by the jade hand, as if it was snow that met the sun. Break! The jade hand blasted the 28 sword pillars together, and the sword pillars immediately began to shake violently. Countless sword chi constantly gushed out from the sword pillars, and the originally pitch-black sword chi constantly trembled, showing signs of collapse. Ah! A series of shrill screams sounded one after another. The sword pillars were instantly crushed into countless sword chi by the Jade Hand. The sword chi exploded, and the surrounding hills and trees were instantly crushed into pieces. Requesting for votes, and brothers with recommendation tickets, please help me cast a few votes. There are too few recommendations. Sakura is about to obtain astonishing benefits in this battle. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 99. The sword pillar that had soared into the sky and stood proudly between the heavens and the earth disappeared with a bang. At the place where the sword pillar disappeared, countless pieces of flesh and blood could be seen scattered on the ground, appearing extremely ferocious and terrifying. These pieces of flesh and blood were all the disciples of the Leaf family who had disappeared earlier. The moment the sword pillar collapsed, their entire bodies were instantly minced into pieces by the countless streams of sword chi that poured out. They were cut into thousands of pieces and died extremely miserably. It could be said to be tragic. The jade-like hand was clearly wary of some people below. After breaking through the sword formation, the huge hand immediately shrunk to its original size in a burst of jade light and instantly flew into the green-robed man's hand. The green-robed man stood in the air. His gaze swept across and landed on Zhong Yunfei and Chu Yan. He berated with a dignified voice, "Yin'er, nephew Zhong, don't be entangled. Hurry up and leave. Let's leave this place." Obviously, the reason he withdrew his jade-like hand earlier was completely because Zhong Yunfei and Chu Yun were still in the one-line sky. Otherwise, if he slapped down with his jade-like hand, most of the living beings would have been smashed into meat paste and completely died. Looking at the king of the beasts in front of him, he instinctively felt a strong sense of threat. The king of the beasts, every single one of them, had the strength to fight against a completion-level cultivator. This was definitely not a lie. In the Taoism community, there was a real example. A completion-level cultivator, after encountering a king of the beasts, excitedly began to fight with it. However, the situation of the battle was not as one-sided as the other party imagined. The monster beast king's body was truly powerful to a level that was difficult for cultivators to imagine. Coupled with the innate divine abilities of the monster beast king, when combined, it was definitely an incomparably terrifying existence. When it went crazy, even a core formation cultivator would be shocked. Stay away from it in fear. There wasn't just one monster beast king in front of them, but several. Every single one of them possessed extremely powerful cultivation and abilities, especially Medusa. Her abilities were even more shocking. She was completely capable of directly contending against a core formation cultivator. You want to leave? When the red-crowned crane king heard the cries of the green-robed man, how could it let them leave so easily? It spread its wings and gracefully flew into the air. Its snow-white wings emitted a soft white light. Under the light, one could see the pure white feathers mysteriously falling off from its wings. The edges of the feathers that fell off were like the edges of the sharpest sword. They flickered with a cold light like snow. Although they were just casually falling, they drew streaks of sharp cold light in the air. In the eyes of those who saw it, they could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Several hundred feathers glowed with white light. Like sharp arrows, they shot towards the azure-robed man from every corner. They were as fast as lightning, so people could only see streaks of white light flashing through the air. They couldn't even see their traces clearly. Furthermore, it was completely silent, without the slightest sound of breaking through the air. It was truly terrifying. If I want to leave, you may not be able to stop me. I don't want to be enemies with any monster beast kings. I only hope that you can take my 2 juniors and leave immediately. I will not interfere with anything." As the green-robed man spoke, he looked at Sakura and the rest. His jade hands flew up into the air and turned into a ball of white light, transforming into a series of real afterimages. Instantly, his entire body was under the protection of his jade hands. Dang, dang, dang. The feathers and the jade-like hand collided. In the white light, after a series of crisp sounds, waves of violent energy burst out and poured out in all directions, creating a series of violent, muffled sounds. What a powerful treasure. Could this be the power of a treasure? It can actually shoot out hundreds of fingers in an instant. A trace of shock flashed in Di Shirtian's eyes. When the sword formation was broken, he had already stopped the tiger roar sound wave. Although the sound wave was more domineering and the attack was incomparably sharp, the consumption of demonic essence was even greater. The demonic essence in his body was almost depleted by 50 to 60% in the blink of an eye in just a few breaths. If not for the demon refining cauldron continuously refining the body in the cauldron into essence chi, he probably would not have such energy now. Although the white light could cover the eyes of ordinary cultivators, how could it hide from Di Shirtian's sharp eyes? At a glance, he saw that in the white light, the jade-like hand had actually bent its middle finger. In an instant, it flicked out hundreds of times. Furthermore, the position of each flick was different. It was prepared to hit the feathers one by one, and all the feathers were bounced back in an instant. Yen'er, come back quickly. The azure-robed man clearly did not want to stay here for even a moment longer and shouted again. Zhong Yunfei and Chu Yun were standing together. Previously, when they fought with the Black Ape King, their originally neat clothes had become abnormally messy. Many wounds appeared, and there were traces of blood on their clothes. In the battle with the Monster King, even if they had a top-grade natal dermic artifact in hand, they still could not gain much of an advantage. Later on, there was the sword formation and then the tiger roar sound wave. Things happened one after another, and they did not even have the chance to react. It was already their great luck to be able to hold on until now. Junior Sister Yun, let's go. The matter here is no longer something we can interfere with. If we don't leave now, even our lives will be lost here. Zhong Yunfei understood the situation in front of him very clearly. He knew that now was definitely not the time to show off. The most important thing was to leave this place. The development of the battle had completely exceeded his imagination. He glanced at the monster beasts, and his brows deeply furrowed. When Chu Yun heard this, her eyes quickly turned, and she approached Zhong Yunfei. With a trace of craftiness, she whispered, "Senior brother Zhong, right now, these monster beasts are all tied up by my third uncle. Most of their attention is definitely on my third uncle. Don't you have a dragon-binding rope? Take advantage of this time to tie up the black tiger, and then we'll follow third uncle and escape from here. There definitely won't be a problem." When Chu Yun saw Di Shirtian display his invincible might, and the overbearing aura of the tiger roar sound wave increased her desire to obtain him. How would she be willing to leave this place so easily? With a thought, she immediately had an idea. Her hope was naturally placed on the dragon-binding rope that Zhong Yunfei had mentioned earlier. That rope was a strange treasure. If a core formation cultivator was not careful, they could be trapped by it and be bound by it. No matter what, it was a magic treasure refined from the dragon tendons of a flood dragon. It was impossible that it did not have a worthy effect. When Zhong Yunfei heard this, he couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. What are you still thinking about? Now is the best opportunity. Hurry up and do it, Chu Yun urged. The light in Zhong Yunfei's eyes flickered a few times. Finally, a trace of determination appeared on his face. Looking at the situation around him, he discovered that most of the monster beast attention had indeed shifted to the green-robed man. After all, the appearance of a core formation cultivator was something that even Medusa and the others couldn't take lightly. This is a good opportunity. A light flashed in Zhong Yunfei's hand, and a sparkling and translucent rope appeared in his hand. On this long rope, strange patterns appeared, appearing extremely mysterious. Moreover, this long rope was also very strange. On one end, there was a lifelike dragon head, and on the other end, there was a dragon tail. When connected together, it was like a divine dragon that had shrunk countless times. When he looked at the talisman markings again, he noticed that when these talisman markings were connected together, they actually seemed like numerous dense dragon scales. This didn't seem to be a magical treasure, but rather a lifelike piece of art. It was extremely beautiful. Dragon binding immortal rope. Bind the monster tiger. Zhong Yunfei lightly shouted. The dragon binding immortal rope in his hand immediately seemed to have a life of its own. It really did turn into a tiny divine dragon. With an abnormally fast speed, it quickly swept towards Di Shitian's huge body. Moreover, under a layer of sparkling and translucent light, the dragon binding immortal rope quickly became incomparably slender. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Di Shitian. The dragon head of the dragon binding immortal rope was silently and almost able to touch his body. Seeing this scene, Chu Yun couldn't help but be extremely excited. Her face was full of anticipation and carried a hint of nervousness. She didn't even blink, afraid that she would miss a single moment. But then, at this crucial moment, Di Shitian's head suddenly turned. He opened his bloody mouth and revealed a disdainful and mocking expression towards Zhong Yunfei and Chu Yun. I knew that you would definitely use such a sneak attack from behind. Looking at your sparkling eyes, this king has every reason to believe that most of you immortal cultivators are despicable and hypocritical people. How could I, Di Shitian, fall for such a trick? As he spoke, the tiger's body suddenly trembled. In an instant, waves of demonic fog rushed out of his body. In almost an instant, the black demonic fog had already spread all over his body, completely covering the tiger's body. Then, in the blink of an eye, the demonic fog rapidly condensed into pitch-black crescent moon blades amidst the violent tumbling. After he studied the demonic fog blade, whenever he had the time, he would constantly practice it. Time and time again, he would change between condensing and dissipating the demonic fog blade, wanting to reduce the time it took to condense the demonic fog blade to the shortest time possible. If he could wait until the day when the demonic fog blade could immediately appear with a thought, then he would have truly reached the true, profound realm of this offensive secret technique. At that time, he would truly be able to use it as his own offensive method. After practicing until now, although he still hadn't reached the realm he imagined, he had already reduced the time it took to condense the demonic fog blade to the highest realm he could reach today. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, he was able to condense the demonic fog blade in his body. You want to bind this king? Your strength is still a bit lacking. Slay for me. With a thought, Di Shitian immediately saw the pitch-black demonic fog blade burst forth with waves of crisp saber sounds at the same time. Streaks of mournful black light were drawn in the air, and from all angles, they slashed at the dragon-binding rope almost simultaneously. Unfortunately, the scene of the dragon-binding rope breaking in response to the sound did not appear. Instead, a layer of sparkling light actually flashed on this long rope. When the demonic fog blade slashed on it, it seemed to have no strength at all. When 100% of its power landed on the rope, only 20 to 30% of its power was left. It surprisingly didn't cause any damage to the rope. What a treasure. I Di Shitian want this long rope. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 100. He was well aware of the power of the demon mistblade. If a normal Dharma artifact were to be slashed repeatedly by it, it would most likely leave cracks on its surface. Even if it were to fight against an immortal cultivator's flying sword, it would not be too inferior. However, when the demon mistblade slashed at the dragon-binding rope, it did not leave the slightest mark on the rope. When the demon mistblade slashed at the dragon-binding rope, He could clearly feel that the sharpness that was originally emitted from the blade of the demon mist blade was directly swept away when the dragon binding rope trembled. When he realized this, D. Chertion immediately knew that the dragon binding rope was definitely an extraordinary treasure. In an instant, the thought of taking it for himself emerged in his mind. The dragon binding rope had already stopped in midair under the attack of the demon mist blade. It emitted waves of sparkling white light, as if it had a life of its own. Not good. He actually discovered us. Junior Sister Yin, we won't be able to catch the demon tiger this time. Let's escape as soon as possible. I want to take back the dragon binding rope. Zhong Yunfei was also a genius of the younger generation. When he saw the disdain in Di Shitian's eyes, he already knew that his actions this time would have been discovered by him. It was already impractical to tie him up in this kind of situation. It wasn't that the dragon binding rope didn't have powerful attacks, but rather that it was a magic treasure. The power of a magic treasure was far beyond what a chi condensation cultivator could control. Without reaching the core formation stage, one could only use a small portion of the magic treasure's power. Furthermore, even if they continued to fight, there would be a huge change in the situation with every moment they delayed. As a result, Zhong Yunfei made a prompt decision. He no longer cared about continuing to attack Di Shitian. He formed a hand seal, and the dragon binding rope immediately emitted layers of light. The dragon head turned and nimbly twisted in midair. It turned around and was about to return to his hand. You want to take it back? Not so easy. Leave it behind. Sakura originally had the intention to keep this long rope, so how could he possibly watch it slip away in front of his eyes? He sneered and raised his tiger claw, extending it towards the dragon binding rope from afar. Roar! As he stretched out his claws, a faint roar of a tiger suddenly spread out in the air. It wasn't from his mouth, but it was derived from an invisible aura. Waves of demon chi poured into the tiger claws, and the tiger claws instantly became filled with demon chi. The ferocious tiger might and baleful aura surged. His aura was like a rainbow as he blasted forward. Rumble! A pitch-black tiger claw materialized in front of him out of thin air. This tiger claw was extremely nimble, and it carried with it the natural aura of a tiger. It clawed at the dragon binding rope. The speed of a tiger's claw was extremely fast. Its sharp aura seemed as if it wanted to lock down the space in front of the claw. The scene was extremely shocking. Under such a ferocious aura, the dragon binding rope actually paused for a moment. However, it was this brief pause that allowed the pitch-black tiger's claw to grab onto the dragon binding rope. The tiger claw suddenly retracted and grabbed the long rope tightly. You want to take my dragon binding rope? Don't even think about it. Zhong Yunfei's face suddenly changed and turned pale. Both of his hands were constantly moving, and the seals in his hands were rapidly changing. As he changed the seals, the dragon binding rope that was originally caught in the tiger claw suddenly burst out with a powerful force. With a fierce struggle, the terrifying force shook the tiger claw loose. The tiger claw that was condensed from demon chi seemed to be on the verge of collapsing under this force. You want to take it back when it's already in my hands? Come back. Di Shitian's eyes flashed. The force just now was too strong. In the demon mansion, the demon refining cauldron quickly rotated. Waves of demon chi rushed into his body and poured into the tiger claw. The demon chi in his body restrained the dragon binding rope without any regard for the consequences. Moreover, he urged the tiger claw to pull back, wanting to truly take back the dragon binding rope. This was not all. At the same time, Di Shitian raised his tiger claw and attacked Zhong Yunfei. With the infusion of demon chi, a tiger claw quickly appeared in front of Zhong Yunfei and heavily smashed into his chest. And Zhong Yunfei's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance and hatred. Sword fingers burst out his hand, and the demon's slaying sword turned into a stream of light and blocked in front of him. However, the tiger claw slammed into the demon's slaying sword, and the terrifying force that erupted still made him let out a muffled groan. With an indescribable expression, he He glanced at the dragon-binding rope again, then resolutely turned around and reached out to pull Chu Yun. Let's go. Where there's life, there's hope. I will definitely take revenge in the future. This was because he had already seen that Medusa and the others, who were waiting on the cyan-robed man, already had a trace of restlessness and wanted to make a move. With so many demon beast kings, it was definitely not something that a core formation cultivator could contend against. If they didn't leave now, everyone would have to stay here today. The way to choose. Only by giving up could one gain. Giving up the dragon-binding rope to save his life. The pros and cons of this were weighed in his heart almost instantly. He decisively gave up on the dragon-binding rope on the spot, and there was a strange determination on his face. Without thinking, he rode the demon-slaying sword and turned into a stream of light, appearing beside the cyan-robed man. The cyan-robed man saw that there was a trace of admiration in his eyes when he looked at Zhong Yunfei. Go, leave this place. When the cyan-robed man saw the two of them coming over, he didn't even think about it and didn't want to stay here for a moment. He turned around and pulled the two of them, quickly escaping from the southern wilderness at a speed that was far faster than when Zhong Yunfei rode the demon-slaying sword. Go. How can it be so cheap? Medusa looked at him coldly. How could she allow the other party to leave so easily? The aura emitted from her body suddenly became unusually mysterious. It was as though her entire person had suddenly become like a rock, cold and without the slightest emotion. The light in her eyes also changed in an instant, and a layer of faint, mysterious yellow light appeared in them. She looked at the cyan-robed man. The dark yellow light kept flickering. Suddenly, a terrifying scene appeared. In the direction she was looking at, starting from the roots of a towering ancient tree in front of her, the color of the tree trunk suddenly began to reverse. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it constantly turned into pieces of hard dark stone. Almost in the blink of an eye, the whole tree had completely turned into a stone tree. Its vitality was instantly extinguished. Medusa's eye. It was extremely terrifying. Once it was used, all the objects in front of her would be petrified in an instant, turning into pieces of cold stone. In an instant, the power of Medusa's eye had appeared on the cyan-robed man. What a powerful Medusa's eye. Demon defending hand. The cyan-robed man was indeed extraordinary. When the power of Medusa's eye was about to be exerted on his body, he immediately used his left hand to block it. Then, the jade hand immediately glowed with jade light and blocked his back. The jade hand seemed to be able to sense the terrifying power of Medusa's eye and burst out a snow-like jade light, covering the three of them in the light. The cyan-robed man's body only paused for a moment and then immediately fled into the distance at an even faster speed. While the cyan-robed man was fighting against the demonic beasts, many quick-witted cultivators took advantage of the situation and quickly fled in all directions when they saw the countless casualties in front of them. However, although all of this took a long time to describe, in fact, only a short time had passed, there were not many cultivators who could be so alert, and those who escaped were only a minority. In the entire one-line sky, there were still hundreds of cultivators left. Medusa saw the cyan-robed man leave with a trace of seriousness in her eyes, as if she had some misgivings. She did not chase after him, and only turned to look at the remaining cultivators. My feet have turned into stone. Not good. This must be Medusa's innate ability. She wants to turn us into stone. Run. Almost in an instant, all the cultivators realized that something was wrong with their bodies. Starting from their feet, they began to turn into stone inch by inch. The parts that turned into stone did not have the slightest feeling, as if they were not their own at all. They wanted to run, but it was too late. Those who remained were just a group of chi refinement cultivators. How could they resist the terrifying innate ability of Medusa's eye? In a few breaths, there were hundreds of lifelike stone sculptures on the field. Moreover, the expressions on the stone sculptures were clearly visible. Even the expressions of fear could be seen clearly. That scene really made people feel a chill in their hearts. From the moment Medusa made her move, the entire battle had been completely turned around in the blink of an eye. It was over. Thousands of cultivators had completely fallen in the one-line sky. At a glance, the ground was littered with the bodies of cultivators who had died miserably. Blood flowed from their bodies and gathered together, forming a small ditch. The aura of death reverberated in the air. One by one, the underworld ravens happily landed on the corpses, revealing expressions of enjoyment as if they were absorbing something. What a dragon-binding rope. It was refined from a long tendon. Could it really be a dragon tendon? Sakura grabbed the dragon-binding rope in front of him and carefully sized it up. He couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. There were countless patterns on the dragon-binding rope, like dragon scales, giving people a mysterious feeling. Moreover, there was a warm aura flowing in his hand, and it was extremely comfortable. This was a treasure, and it was definitely not a simple treasure. He had seen many Dharma artifacts, but none of them gave him such a feeling. In addition, the dragon-binding rope was able to erupt with such a powerful force when struggling just now. It was obvious that it was extraordinary. He glanced at it a few times and did not play with it, putting it into his storage bag. He raised his head and looked at the Black Ape King and the other monsters. Di knew very well that the previous battle was only the beginning. Now that the battle was over, it was time to reap the benefits. Speaking of benefits, how could there be no benefits? The corpses on the ground were all cultivators' bodies. Moreover, they had just died not long ago. The cultivation in their bodies had all scattered into their flesh and blood, and they were full of essence. To the monsters, this was the most nourishing blood food. Refining it could increase one's cultivation. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 101. Therefore, the corpses of these cultivators were a huge harvest for the beasts. If they could get their hands on some of the corpses and absorb them, they would definitely be able to increase their strength by 1 or 2 levels. Of course, there were thousands of corpses. Among the beasts, other than Di no one could easily absorb so many corpses. After all, no matter how strong their refining abilities were, there was still a limit. At most, they could swallow hundreds of corpses at once. The rest of the corpses would be difficult to swallow at once. As for the corpses of cultivators, although all of their cultivation had been dispersed into their flesh and blood, they could not be preserved for too long. After half an hour, or even 2 hours, if the corpses were not absorbed, the spiritual essence would gradually dissipate because the corpses had lost their vitality. Without the ability to restrain them in the body, they would gradually dissipate. Therefore, even the corpses of cultivators had to be absorbed into the body within a certain period of time. Otherwise, they would lose their powerful spiritual essence. This also meant that among the thousands of corpses, the beasts would not be able to absorb much. Therefore, these corpses were a huge treasure. However, the one who benefited the most from this treasure was Di. This was because only Di had a heavenly demon residence. In the demon residence, there was a magical demon refining cauldron. He had tried to use the demon refining cauldron to absorb blood and flesh. There was no need to care about the quantity, because when the demon refining cauldron absorbed the corpses would naturally shrink. The cauldron could hold a large number of corpses. Moreover, the corpses absorbed into the cauldron would not lose their spiritual essence. They would be refined bit by bit. It could be said that this was a huge harvest. With so many corpses of cultivators in front of him, he would definitely be able to cultivate to the peak of the beasts. Then, he would condense an inner core and become a real demon. Of course, the harvest was not only these corpses. There were also the storage bags that they wore. In the bags, there were large amounts of items from the immortal cultivation world. If these items were slightly divided and gathered together, each of the beasts would be able to obtain an immeasurable amount of treasures. Behind the killing, there were always great benefits. That's great. A clear cry echoed in the sky. It was the voice of the vermilion bird. It flapped its wings and circled in the air. Its eyes were filled with excitement as it shouted, "These annoying cultivators are finally dead. Umph. Let's see if they still dare to kill spirit beasts and spirits in the mountains." With so many cultivators dying here, the vermilion bird was not afraid at all. Instead, it was extremely excited. It was no wonder. Immortal cultivators and the demon clan had been at odds for a long time. In the mountain range, it was either you kill me or I kill you. The number of spiritual beasts and demons that died at the hands of immortal cultivators was not small. The hatred between them had long been buried deep. It was very difficult for the vermilion bird to sympathize with cultivators. "Fellows, we have killed off all the cultivators. What should we do next?" The Golden Lion King turned to look at Shirtan, Underworld Crow King, and the others. His eyes swept across the body on the ground from time to time. Clearly, his meaning was very clear. The bodies of these cultivators contain a large amount of essence. It is very beneficial to the cultivation of our demon clan. I don't need it. You can take some and refine it. It will be beneficial to you. Medusa said coldly. She did not have much nostalgia for the bodies of the cultivators. It was not that she was otherworldly and pretended to be aloof, but she was in the stage of condensing her inner core. These bodies were already dispensable to her. What she needed was just to cultivate in seclusion. "I want 300 bodies." The Golden Lion King did not hide and said immediately. He wanted to come. Firstly, he could absorb them himself. Secondly, he could increase the strength of his subordinates. More would be a waste, less would not be enough. 300 bodies were enough. This king and my clansmen only need to absorb the death aura. After a great battle here, a large amount of death aura has condensed in the valley. This king does not want the bodies. When the time comes, this king will bring my clansmen to stay here for a few days. The Underworld Crow King was not interested in blood. Their Underworld Crow clan loved the death aura emitted from the bodies of living beings. After a great battle, the casualties were huge. The death aura that was emitted had already condensed in the entire valley. Ordinary people could not see it, but the Underworld Crow clan could see it clearly. They naturally would not let go of such death aura. Among the demon beasts, other than them, no one could absorb the death aura. Naturally, no one would compete with them. "I want 100 bodies." The Red-Crowned Crane King swept his gaze and said, I, Old Black, will take 500 bodies. I can't use any more." The Black Ape King chuckled and said, "The rest belongs to me." After listening to their allocation, Sakura finally opened his mouth to express his own wishes. In his voice, there was a faint trace of strange majesty. It brought an indescribable pressure to the surroundings. When the thought of controlling his life and not the heavens arose in his heart, his body naturally started to cultivate a unique aura of only himself. This kind of aura had not truly been revealed now, but it could be expected that as long as he was given time, sooner or later, it would truly become his unique aura. At that time, every word and action of his would carry a different kind of majesty. Now, in his words, there was a hint of it. When the Black Ape King heard this, he couldn't help but cry out, "Brother D, what do you want so many for? The flesh and blood energy of these cultivators' corpses will only exist for a short period of time. It's useless for you to keep them." "That's right," the vermilion bird also said. "I heard Big Sister say that the body of a cultivator is one of the most suitable bodies for cultivation. Their flesh and blood have an enormous amount of essence chi and blood essence compared to other living beings. However, they have to be refined within 2 hours after their death. Otherwise, all of their strength will be lost. It's useless." It tilted its head and flew back and forth in front of Shirtan as it chattered about what it knew. "Divide the items of these cultivators into 7 portions. We'll each take 1 portion and then return to our respective territories." Medusa looked at Shirtan with a strange expression in her eyes. It was as if she had realized something, but she didn't ask. She only continued to talk about how to distribute the remaining items. The demonic beasts didn't have any objections to Medusa's method of distribution. Immediately, the underworld crows quickly picked up the small storage pouches from the corpses and divided them into 7 portions in an open space. Because they were all storage pouches, it wasn't troublesome. They each took their own portion and put it into a storage pouch. Then, they each took the corpses on the ground. These corpses were also stored in storage pouches. In the blink of an eye, all the corpses in the entire valley had been cleanly divided. Other demonic beasts only used 1 or 2 storage pouches to store what they needed. However, Tion filled dozens of storage pouches. The number of corpses he collected was over 1,000. Great harvest. This is really a great harvest. With these corpses in hand, not only can I cultivate at the fastest speed, but I can also greatly increase the cultivation of Qihua and the others. It can allow them to become demonic beasts in the shortest time possible. Moreover, it can remove a big hidden danger. At least in the short term, I don't have to worry about anyone finding trouble with me because of the compass. While Sakura was collecting, he was also thinking in his mind, secretly pondering. The harvest this time could not be said to be small. These 1,000 corpses were placed in the demon refining cauldron. He could continuously absorb a large amount of essence from the corpses and refine it into demonic liquid and demonic essence. The demon refining cauldron was operating non-stop. This meant that even if he didn't deliberately cultivate, just by refining the corpses of these cultivators, he could increase his cultivation and demonic essence at an incredible speed. This was accumulation. This was a huge accumulation. It was enough for him to cultivate until he condensed an inner core. This was an incomparably great opportunity to become stronger. Moreover, the souls of these cultivators were still in their bodies. In a while, with the purple king mark on their foreheads, he could absorb their souls into the king mark. Perhaps the power of the king mark would increase even more. Killing thousands of cultivators in one fell swoop was such a big move. It would definitely cause a great shock in the immortal cultivation world, or a kind of deterrence. Of course, it would also make the immortal cultivation world pay more attention to the southern barbarian land. However, it was certain that the southern barbarian land would be quiet for a long time. And what Tion needed was this period of peace. Only with enough time could he advance to a more powerful realm. Brother D, this battle was too boring. These cultivators are too weak. They can't raise their spirits at all. In the future, you must find me to fight a few rounds. The Black Ape King came in front of Tion casually and laughed loudly. Then, he turned around and walked back with a few subordinates full of scars and left the one-line sky. Ow! The Red-Crowned Crane King also nodded to the other monster kings before spreading its wings and flying away. The battle had ended, and the monster beasts did not stay here and left one after another. Previously, it was only because thousands of cultivators had gathered together at the same time, and their momentum had already caused a great threat to the southern barbarian land. That was why the monster kings gathered together. Now, the threat had been removed, and each of them had obtained enough benefits. They were all anxious to go back and refine the cultivator bodies they had obtained. They did not want to lose their essence because of time. Seeing the monster beasts leave one after another, Tion was not surprised. At this time, the vermilion bird flew in front of him and looked at him with reluctance. Brother Zhu is also leaving. Sister hasn't seen Zhu for so long. She must be worried. Zhu, if you have time, you can come to my Myriad Demon Valley. At that time, we can still see each other. Tion nodded slightly in response to the vermilion bird's reluctance. During this period of time, the vermilion bird had left a deep impression on him, especially the mysterious sister she often mentioned. This made him very curious. Yes, Zhu, it will definitely go. The vermilion bird nodded vigorously. She flapped her wings, picked up a storage bag, and flew toward the center of the southern barbarian land. For a time, only Tion and Medusa were left in the originally lively one-line sky. This battle has ended. The protagonist has gained the first accumulation and has the foundation to become stronger in a short time. However, this is only the beginning of the book. The subsequent plot will be revealed little by little. The protagonist will also officially begin to refine his natal demon weapon. Everyone can use their imagination and guess. Hee hee. Chapter 102. Pada. Medusa did not leave immediately like the other beasts. Instead, she silently waited for the other beasts to leave before she turned to look at D. Shirtion and walked towards him. Her terrifying snake hair danced wantonly in the breeze and draped over her shoulders. Paired with her peerless beauty, it gave people a feeling of asterisk, 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 asterisk. D. Shirtion was a little surprised by Medusa's actions. He thought to himself, Medusa didn't leave after the other beasts left. Moreover, looking at the direction she is coming from, she must be staying because of me. Could it be that she has something to say to me? However, what would she say? This is the first time I have met her. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any interaction between us. Although he thought about it, he didn't reveal the slightest bit of it on the outside. With the experience of rebirth in his previous life, his various emotions were rarely revealed in front of outsiders. His joy and anger were not expressed in words. However, he looked at Medusa with a trace of doubt in his eyes. There was also a kind of vigilance in his heart. Every inch of the muscles in his body was in the best state, and he could launch an attack at any time. In the future, it's better to do less of this kind of thing. The demon race can't compete with the immortal cultivation world. If there is such behavior again, the entire southern wilderness will be destroyed. Medusa walked to D. Shirtion's side and said a seemingly inexplicable sentence with a slightly cold tone. What do you mean by this? D. Shirtion's heart suddenly tightened. His two pupils suddenly shrank. He looked at Medusa, but his mind couldn't help but roll up a storm. Medusa didn't care about D. Shirtion's words. She just revealed a meaningful look and said, What do I mean? You should be very clear in your heart. Remember, on the continent, there are not many places that can accommodate the demon race. You have enough talent to cultivate. After a few hundred years, you may be able to hold up the sky for the demon race. Strength is the foundation of a foothold. You can do whatever you want. After he finished speaking, he didn't hesitate at all. While speaking, he didn't stop for a moment. When he finished speaking, he just so happened to pass by D. Shirtion and calmly walked into the forest. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the dense forest, leaving behind only the clear voice from before, which continued to reverberate in their ears. His words seemed to contain a deep meaning. D. Shirtion did not stop Medusa from leaving. However, his heart shook violently. Medusa must have sensed something and started paying attention to me. However, a few hundred years is definitely not something I want to wait for. Perhaps ordinary demons need a lot of time to cultivate, but I can't wait that long. I have a celestial demon abode, the demon refining cauldron, and the bodies of several thousand chi condensation cultivators. If I refine all of them, I'll be able to grow rapidly. I wonder what kind of life Mother White Tiger and the others are leading right now. The light in D. Shirtion's eyes became more and more determined as he thought about it. He never thought that he was wrong. This time, he had indeed set up a trap to start this war. That was because these foreign cultivators had seriously threatened his survival. Therefore, he had to eliminate this threat. Moreover, if he wanted to increase his strength, he would need at least decades or centuries to do so. This was something he couldn't wait for. However, the demon refining cauldron in the demon abode gave him a terrifying speed of growth. Of course, he now had the bodies of cultivators. However, to refine them was not something that could be done overnight. It was also a huge project. If demons want to be strong, it's not something that can be achieved by simply avoiding. The more we retreat, the more we will be bullied. Sooner or later, I will let this world know that if demons want to be strong, if demons want to rise, they need to kill fiercely. D. Shirtion secretly pondered in his heart. He raised his head and looked at the sky, his eyes filled with a deep light. He did not stay in a line sky any longer, and quickly returned to his own myriad demon valley. Although it was only a matter of 4 or 5 days, the magnificence of it was enough to make people excited. While walking, he quickly recalled the scenes of these days in his mind. Speaking of which, the harvest this time was not small. First of all, the threat that had been hanging above his head was solved. He didn't need to worry that there would be cultivators who would harm him. At least, he could have a period of calm time to cultivate. This period of time would be extremely precious for him. Moreover, he had obtained the bodies of these cultivators, which was a great fortune. Coupled with the various immortal cultivation items obtained from the cultivators, it was another huge accumulation. For the future development of strength, it was a leap forward. He had the foundation for development. Finally, he also took advantage of this opportunity to see the monster kings of the Southern Barbarian in one fell swoop. He got to know each other and had a general understanding of the Southern Barbarian. Since then, he had truly integrated into the Southern Barbarian. He had become a member of the Southern Barbarian and had a foothold. Each and every one of them was incomparably important. However, D. Chertion achieved it all at once with his means. This means could be said to be slightly similar to the means he used in his previous life. Quickly walking through the mountain forest, his body had shrunk to its normal size again, and he was extremely fast. While thinking, he ran. Not long after, the myriad demon valley had already appeared in front of him. Through the cave and into the valley, he saw that in the sky, a high-pitched eagle cry sounded in an instant. Looking up, Ing Kong's huge body hovered in the air and descended, landing in front of D. Chertion. With a look of excitement in his eyes, he cried, "King, you are finally back." In his voice, there was a kind of excitement and relaxation from the heart, as if he was relieved in an instant. "King, King!" Before D. Chertion could open his mouth to speak, he saw a crimson-red figure rushing over from afar. Behind it, there were several figures following behind. When everyone saw Sakura, they all revealed a look of excitement and exhilaration. "Well, since everyone is here, I will take out the things today. Each of you take a few." D. Chertion glanced at several of his subordinates and found that their cultivation had improved. He was not surprised. After getting the cultivation method, how could they be negligent? No matter who it was, as long as they had time, they would seize every moment to cultivate diligently, hoping to break through the meridians of the whole body as soon as possible. However, after all, it had only been a few days. Their progress was only based on the previous accumulation. Now, if they wanted to progress, they needed all kinds of spiritual essence and time to improve. Swish! Indra took out the storage pouch on his body and took out dozens of similar pouches from inside. He quickly opened them. Suddenly, one could see that these storage pouches were flickering with light. One by one, the dead bodies of cultivators were constantly spat out from the pouches. In the blink of an eye, the large open space in front of them was filled with corpses. There were so many of them, thousands of them. When Chi Hua and the others saw it, their eyes showed a look of surprise. They looked at D. Chertion in confusion. Although these cultivators are dead, their bodies contain large amounts of essence chi and blood essence. If you refine them, you will be able to obtain the essence chi hidden in their bodies. It will be very beneficial to your cultivation. Later, each of you will choose a few corpses and consume them as soon as possible. You will use the method of refining blood food to refine them. Otherwise, you will lose their essence. D. Chertion was never stingy with his subordinates. They were his most important subordinates, and they were the core of his team. While he was improving himself, he would help his subordinates to improve as well. "Thank you, King. This is great. Your subordinates were just feeling that cultivation was too slow. If we consume these bodies, our cultivation will increase greatly in a short period of time." Bai Susu's eyes were filled with excitement. Clearly, she had a special desire for strength. Chi Hua and the others also excitedly thanked D. Chertion. "Before that, there is one more thing I need to do." "All of you back off. Retreat behind me." D. Chertion did not pay much attention to them. He had Chi Hua and the others retreat behind him. His two tiger eyes shone brightly, giving off an aura that was difficult to look at. At the same time, a unique aura of solipsism emerged from his body. Immediately, it spread out in all directions like a tidal wave. Under this aura, the way Chi Hua and the others looked at Di Shurtian completely changed. They all involuntarily lay on the ground, as if a mountain was pressing down on them. They did not dare to move and looked at the king in front of them in awe. Around him, a gust of wind rose out of nowhere. In the gust of wind, the purple king mark on Sakura's forehead violently pulsed, emitting a rich purple light. It was like a strange purple flame that was constantly flickering. What was strange was that in this purple flame, there seemed to be a malevolent face of a soul. In the thousands of bodies in front of him, none of his souls had left the body. At that time, in one-line sky, Di Shurtian did not want to reveal the secret of his purple king mark, lest others completely see through him. Therefore, he did not use this innate ability to absorb souls. Therefore, he waited until he returned to the myriad demon valley before he began to absorb these thousands of souls. My purple king mark is closely related to souls. There is a strange space in the king mark. If I absorb all the bodies here into the king mark at once, will the king mark change? Feeling the purple king vein on his forehead pulsing as if it had a life of its own, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Regarding this innate ability of his, to be honest, even now he still didn't fully understand it, and he was even more aware of the mystery of the king vein. Faintly, he had a feeling that the king mark was definitely not simple. It contained a mysterious power, but he still did not have the ability to use it. Now, there were thousands of souls in front of him. He could not help but secretly look forward to what kind of changes would occur if they all entered the king mark. Thinking about it, the king mark on his forehead also burst out with a layer of rich purple light in the blink of an eye. The light was like specks of dust spreading down. In almost the blink of an eye, the entire open space in front of him was completely covered in purple light. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 103. The purple light was overwhelming and endless. In the blink of an eye, it had covered thousands of corpses in front of him. For a moment, the scene in front of him had completely turned into a purple ocean. The scene was gorgeous. Moreover, the purple light seemed to contain some kind of mysterious power. As soon as it covered the bodies, shadows that looked exactly like the bodies crawled out one after another. These shadows were souls. However, the souls in front of them were much stronger than the souls of ordinary people. Although they were illusory, their appearance and demeanor could be seen. However, after these souls came out, their expressions were filled with terror and fear. They were constantly struggling, trying to struggle out of the purple light. Shrill cries came out of their mouths. "No, Your Majesty, you have already taken our lives. Please let our souls go. We will give you everything. Please let us go. Your Majesty, as long as you let us go, I will follow you and serve you wholeheartedly. Let's go quickly. Otherwise, the experts in our world of immortal cultivation will definitely destroy your southern barbarian lands." Under the purple light, all the souls felt a strong sense of threat. They began to beg one after another. Some begged with soft words, some tempted with beauty, and some threatened with malicious words. Thousands of different forms were constantly being displayed here. They seemed even more ordinary than ordinary people. "Humph, you were not my opponent when you were alive. Now that you are dead and have become souls, you are even less my opponent. Threats? What a joke. Come in, all of you." When Indra heard those pleading and threatening shouts, a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. How could he give up on the souls in front of him? Although he still didn't understand the use of the purple king mark, he knew that the power of the king mark was definitely connected to the souls. The more souls there were, the better. He wasn't idle at all. As soon as he finished speaking, purple threads suddenly flew out from the purple light that covered the sky. They quickly bound the souls and pulled them towards the king rune. As the souls got closer and closer to the king rune, the souls also rapidly shrank. Almost in the blink of an eye, the king rune became smaller and smaller. One by one, the souls were pulled into the king pattern like a gourd. Boom, boom, boom. When he had absorbed several hundred souls, suddenly, Sakura felt an unprecedented blazing light burst out from the king mark on his forehead, and a rumbling sound resounded in his mind. Finally, there is a change. Tion felt it. Without thinking, he still let the purple light pull the souls into the king pattern, but his mind instantly entered the king pattern. He saw that there was a strange space in the purple king pattern. It was filled with layers of purple liquid, like a purple lake. This purple lake wasn't very large. At the start, it could only hold 100 or 200 souls. After those souls entered, they were all directly sucked into the purple lake. When the soul entered the purple pool, a mysterious power would emerge from the purple pool and pour into the soul, connecting the soul and the purple pool together, fusing them into one. The original size of the purple pool wasn't very large, and with Sakura's large action of absorbing souls, the purple pool was quickly filled to the brim. In the blink of an eye, it was no longer able to hold any more souls. However, there were still souls continuously pouring into the king rune space from the outside. For a moment, a mysterious change occurred in the king pattern space. In the originally calm, purple pool, surging undercurrents suddenly appeared. They kept churning violently. When the undercurrents collided with each other, they immediately stirred up huge purple waves. As the purple waves churned, the souls that had entered the purple pool and closed their eyes one after another, silently fusing with the purple pool, suddenly opened their eyes at the same time. Rays of purple light shot out from their eyes as they extended their hands into the purple pool before pulling them back. Clang, clang, clang. He stuck his hand into the pool empty-handed, but when he took it out again, there were many weapons glowing with purple light in his hand. There were sabers, swords, spears, lances, and so on. They were all different. One by one, they quickly walked towards the edge of the purple pool. Outside the purple pool, there was a purple area. Countless purple lights were constantly flowing. Nothing could be seen. It was extremely mysterious. The purple pool was in the middle of the purple chi. Clang, clang. Once it entered, the purple pool instantly underwent an inconceivable change. The water in the purple pool churned violently and emitted a dense purple light, forming a purple barrier. Following that, one could see that the purple pool within the purple barrier began to ripple violently due to the entry of the purple gas. As if it had a life of its own, it endlessly wriggled in all directions and expanded outwards bit by bit. Clang, 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 clang. The original souls in the purple pool were quickly waving the weapons in their hands and hacking at the purple gas outside of the purple pool. Every time they hacked, a part of the purple gas would be separated and fused into the purple pool. When the purple pool obtained the purple gas, it seemed to have obtained a huge amount of energy and kept expanding outwards. Clang, 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 clang. In the sky above the valley, waves of heaven and earth spiritual chi from all directions began to converge towards the valley like tired birds returning to their nests. Almost in the blink of an eye, the sky became colorful and incomparably gorgeous, forming a huge spiritual chi vortex. A huge amount of spiritual chi was sucked in by the vortex. With the infusion of the violet chi, the violet pond expanded rapidly. In the span of a few breaths, when all the souls returned to the violet pond after exhausting almost all of their power, the size of the violet pond had mysteriously increased by 10 times in that short period of time. If the original purple pool was a small pool, then the current one could be called a large purple pool. The expansion of the purple pool also caused the originally crowded souls to instantly become incomparably spacious. Soul after soul once again continuously surged into the purple pool and settled down in the pool. The Purple King Mark's space is truly miraculous. It can continue to expand from its original foundation. These souls seem to be quite powerful. Inconceivable, the original soul did not have any strength. Once it entered the purple pool, it actually underwent such a miraculous transformation. Perhaps this can no longer be called a soul. Looking at its ferocious appearance in battle, it is more like a battle soul. Tion couldn't help but rejoice inwardly. My innate ability definitely has room for improvement. It definitely shouldn't only have the effect of simply absorbing souls. There must be an even more mysterious power. Seeing the changes in the King rune space, Tion couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Disregarding everything else, if he could release those battle souls from the purple pool, they would be a great help to him. Thinking of this, he tested it once more. But to his disappointment, he was still only able to use the soul-devouring ability against the Purple King Mark. He was unable to use anything else. While he was experiencing the changes in the King rune, the vermilion bird returned to the 100-Flower Valley with a storage pouch. The temperature in the 100-Flower Valley was moderate, suitable for the growth of all kinds of flowers. Hundreds of flowers bloomed all year round, and the fragrance of the flowers wafted through the air. It made living in this environment feel relaxed and happy. Groups of butterflies fluttered through the flowers, bringing a kind of vitality to the valley. Big sister, quickly come and see what Jura has brought back for you. The vermilion bird flapped her wings, and a fiery red tail appeared behind her. She landed at the window of the wooden house and put down the storage pouch in her beak. In front of her was that mysterious girl from the valley. Seeing the vermilion bird's spirited appearance, the girl smiled and said, "You naughty little thing, it seems you've caused trouble again." "No, Jure didn't." The vermilion bird raised her head high and shouted, "Big sister, this time I went with Big Brother D, Big Sister Medusa, and the others to cause trouble for those cultivators, and even drove them out. How is it? This should be a great achievement, right?" Ju also worked for the Southern Barbarian. Her eyes were full of pride as she spoke. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. I support the author and support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.